But yeah, no, it's an exciting week. I'm excited. The Xbox One doesn't hurt me as much because I don't have miles, and if I don't get the PS5, it's fine. I'll buy on the PS4. When I get the PS5, I'll just transfer the save over and start playing it on there. And I just want that that new thing played on there. But it's just because the other two guys that are reviewing it, Kirkland and Dylan, they're not getting the PS5. They're doing PS4. So it's like, well, if I want to be included in review, I want to try. And like you've said, it's probably a pretty short game. So it's like, well, I could play it and then I'll maybe play it again PS5 and stuff. So it's like, it's a very much a problem. It's nothing that major.
Oh yeah, I mean, at least right now, I just beat Ghost of Tsushima on Sunday. Really awesome game. I really enjoyed it. But now I can set this up, and I've got Valhalla to play on it, so that'll keep me occupied this weekend and not have to worry about Miles. I want to play Miles, but if I don't, it's just for the PS5, so I don't have my PS5. Can't do that. So
yeah.
All right. Do you want me to record on Audacity?
Yeah, I'll do that because.
All right, let me do 3, 2, 1 and start recording. And then do you have the link to tweet out?
Took off. I should have. You're going to tweet out the link?
I need the link first.
Okay.
Oh, never mind. No, yeah, I got to get to YouTube. But yeah, if you have it quicker.
Let's see here. I'll try and pull it up. But no, I really should have taken off at least Monday. Oh, such a sad Google notification. Xbox Series X today. Thanks, Google Calendar. Just rubbing in my face.
Travis is very proud of himself for sharing the image from Zach showing Martian Manhunter on his chat with the Nerd Queens. And he says, I wanted to get to it before Chris does. And Joe says, I'd never be ashamed about sharing something before Chris. The man seems to have some sort of wizard when it comes to the news. I have my ways.
Was that announced that he was going to be on there? Or that just randomly happened, right? Because I've been at the link.
I didn't know about it, but I've also had a really busy day at work, and we're having the remnants of this hurricane come through. So I decided to mow my lawn today instead of at the end of the week, because it's going to be monsoon season through Friday. So
I got the link now, so I'll tweet that out, and then we'll start in T-minus a minute here.
So the article is actually decent. It wasn't anything earth-shattering, but it was some interesting gems.
Mm-hmm. No release date, though.
It's coming in December. I think the Latin America thing is just Latin America.
Save it for the episode.
What's that?
For my tinfoil hat. I said I'll save my opinion for the episode. My tinfoil hat.
Your tinfoil hat. It's still coming out on Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, the 27th. That'd be crazy. Okay, we are good to go, sir.
All right, so let me say. Okay, let me get it on my end. I'm so happy about not hearing political ads in our feed anymore.
Yeah, I'll be interested what you guys get replaced with next. Like I said, for us, it's usually pretty random stuff because we didn't have no election going on. So it's kind of flavor of the week.
Yeah, it's mostly usually attorneys trying to do personal injury. Retweet. Done. And is work kicking your butt right now or no?
Who's kicking the butt?
Yes, it's work kicking your butt right now.
Oh, I said, are we kicking your butt right now? I'm like, what did I miss in the chat? What's happening? Yeah, it is.
We had a secret trivia and this time you lost.
Geek first didn't show up all. Oh, yeah, it is. It's just because it has some COVID spikes, so things are busy, but we are very understaffed right now, and it is very showing, and it just feels like any day to break the camel's back, in my opinion. They're just very close today. There's just certain orders that just will not go out because we just didn't have enough people, and luckily we found a way, but it was just like, I just had to look at people like, I'm not going to get to this, and these people are not going to get their orders unless I get some help. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess we will, but it's just like, especially because we have the stat too, right? So that's where as you'd think they'd figure the system out, but what they do is instead of, I won't be too specific, but they'll just take all the work on Wednesday and just move it to Tuesday, but not take away any of Tuesday's work. So it's 2 days worth of work in one, and it's it's brutal, especially with COVID and everything. It's just like pile on top. So I took all of Christmas week off though, so I'm excited about that. I told him I'm not working. I was gonna take Christmas already off, but that's my break to myself, and yeah, we'll see.
Good for you. I'm still toying with what I'm doing for Christmas. That's I'm 12 months and I can take off or not take off. But, as my boss always reminds me, you get to retire days early. Always keep that in mind. All right. If you're ready to go, I'm ready to go.
Ready.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. From the comics, TV, and movies, we go from the Mojoverse to Earth 616 to the Negative Zone to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. My name is the Uncanny Chris.
I'm the Bald Podcast of Mischief, Travis Snail.
Alliance Assemble.
Yeah, I had to start that out because every Tuesday, come watch us record early. Fanboy Clay said, Bald Travis and Scruffy Chris. Yeah, it's like we're the alternate versions of, like we're going through like Endgame style, and but you're one to talk, Clay. You're a little balder yourself, so.
Not like you, man. I look at you and I think cue ball, corner pocket.
I think, yeah, it does look like that, but I'm pretty happy it's a pretty round head. Like when you said Professor Xavier, I could pull it off. I'm slightly British. Oh. And even then, Xavier was not really British until the animated series, right? And then it was the other way around since Xavier. And then once that happened, he's always British now,
It fits, but I think I like my two choices for either. You got John Bernthal's The Punisher, or we've got Tyler Durden in Fight Club. I think either one of them, I think you'd do a good spitting image for.
He's being nice now. Before we start casting, compare me to Fester, so that's also the third option. So.
I did. I do like Uncle Fester. I like the Christopher Lloyd Uncle Fester.
Oh, that's so good. Which one do you prefer, Addams Family 1 or 2? There's a big debate.
I like the second one just because Christopher Lloyd he's not playing the brainwashed Uncle Fester. He can be a little more funnier, and so that's what I like a little bit more. But that's the main reason. That's my only reason for choosing that.
I similarly go to for the two reasons. One, I love Wednesday Addams' whole like camp arc, and she goes over and does her little thing and whatnot with the play with the Thanksgiving and everything like that.
I love that.
That's some good stuff. And two, it might be Joan Cusack's best role of all time. I think she's so good in that. Because she's playing against type. She's always usually this like nice lady, loving, caring. This she's just a vicious Black Widow, and her and Lloyd have good chemistry. So. Welcome to Addams Family Alliance.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I tell people. I told people when I didn't dress up for Halloween. They said, "What are you?" I said, "I steal the line from Wednesday Addams. I'm a homicidal maniac. I look like everyone else."
And they're like, "Oh, great, yeah." But
all right, seriously,
seriously, we're gonna get in. Yeah, we got some Marvel news, a little lighter, but we got a good topic to talk about. We got some news. Just a few plugs to get away. One, a big thank you to everyone, including you, Chris, for participating and donating. Thank you very much. As you can see, we've been talking about for weeks, and that's why I am bald. If you're watching the video version, we blew past our goal. It was crazy. We were aiming for 1,500 and we got to $2,225. So it was crazy. Even the stream, Greg thought he was safe. That's why Greg's looking like baby. Everyone looks like bizarro, different versions of themselves right now. It's I mean,
funny. You're shocked within yourself. I think Greg's just even more shocking because I've never seen him without the beard except in photos.
He looks like a completely different person to me. Like it was crazy. So no, just a big thank you to everyone, whether it's the people that hosted the trivia battle with Brent, Scott, and Tyler, whether it's you guys that participated. We had a fun battle, even though Chris, you joined that wrong side of history. Somehow we eked out the win, GV. I couldn't believe it.
Hey, you kept on promoting a blowout, and it was getting to that point. We made a rousing comeback, so it wasn't a blowout. I'll take that as a moral victory, but we know there's going to be a rematch. That's the two things. One, it was like a story down to the and if people ask for the replay, I'm working on it. YouTube does this fun thing when you do a stream over 12 hours. It's so we haven't done this in years, and what's going to happen is I think sometime this week, either Wednesday or Thursday, I'm releasing a thank you video, but it's going to explain what's happening with the video as well, because both years we've done Twitch and YouTube. This year we could only do YouTube because some Twitch contract we have. So the thing is, after 12 hours, it gets like really muggy. So I'm hoping to at least save that and go back. But if not, it was just a barn burn of, we took a big lead early on, and then you guys slowly came back, and it literally came down to the last question. And it's funny, I said this to Greg, that I knew it was going to come down to Star Wars because I felt you guys would have DC and we'd have Marvel. But it was funny that it was the other way around, that
geek first kind of led in DC, but you guys led in Marvel. It was like total role reverse. And like that Batman 66 thing that Kirkland got to shut off.
Oh
Complete
gosh.
guess. He told
like, and you know what? I should have paid. I know Scott, and I know how careful he is with his wording, and he trapped me with that whole a theatrical feature film at that point, not a serial. So he got me with that.
I was thinking the serial too. I thought you had it. So, but no, it was tons of that was very, very fun. And it's funny because Travis was talking about, if you go listen to DC Alliance, he's talking about this whole like plan he was concocting over these few weeks and everything like this. And so it was funny because there's two things that I was going to do. And that's what I told him. I would tell them a Marvel Alliance that there was three things. One, Travis approached me and I was going to approach him. But then very early on, I was like to Taylor, I was like, I don't know if we can fully trust him because it's like, it just feels, I'm like, why would he want to switch teams so badly? So then I was like, okay. And I kept like poking, like, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? But then two, the reason I also got that idea is because I was going to send Taylor over to Greg and get him to email him, say he was going to do the same thing. Last minute, he would back out. So I was like, well, if I'm thinking that, they might be thinking that. And three, this never got to happen. So I was so mad. We were just so busy. We literally, the stream after 2 hours, and this is like a little behind the scenes, we were panicking so much because of the 2 hour mark, our Wi-Fi completely dropped. It was just gone. And the stream was dead for about 30 minutes. And this was about 40 minutes before the trivia battle. So like, oh no. And luckily Taylor got on the phone with his internet provider, everything like that, but it was down, like nothing was working. I was like, we're gonna have to reschedule and this is just going wrong. And everyone was starting, and at that moment, it's the worst when you see your phone and people are retweeting the link and you're like, no. And people are like, oh, is it down? I'm like, oh my goodness. So
no.
So it didn't get to happen. But what my plan was, so yes, Travis, yes, Katie, it was myself who said we're going to do just only movies, because even when I was talking, even Brent said this on the host, it's like, it was good to narrow it down, not just have everything. Maybe one day we will do that. But my plan was, and I think Greg would have completely fell for this, me and Taylor photoshopped an email chain of me talking to Greg. That wasn't real, but I was going to pin it on Greg that he had said only movies. And he probably, because he said all he checked was his Twitter messages. The plan was to drop it the trivia battle and have you guys bickering a little bit, but our Wi-Fi went down, so it saved Greg. But no, it was tons of fun, lots of scheming. There'll be a rematch one day, and I just thank everyone for tuning in and watching. It was our biggest one yet. How am I going to top next year? No idea. We're thinking about stuff, but it's a long ways away. But right now, what you can do is, this is Geek Ultimate Alliance. Every Monday is World's Finest True Believers. Chris, what were we covering this week?
We had a retro this week with my buddy Dave from DC on Screen, looking at Superman for Tomorrow. So that was a fun one, looking back on a David proposed the idea, and he said, I'm hoping that I have a history has been better to, because originally he didn't like it, and he wanted to revisit it, give it another shot, and yeah, we both have the same opinion. It didn't get better with age, but we do give it a fair shot. It's a very different World's Finest True Believers, but it's a very good episode. It's definitely one of my favorites, just because of how different it is.
Yeah, so you can check that out. That's on the feeds right now. DC Alliance dropped today. They talked a bit of a little Batmobile stuff, a little Robert Pattinson. Obviously, if you listen to the podcast feed, it's Wednesday Marvel, so we're here. Thursday right now is a back and forth between Slice of Film and Ranger Alliance. That's what's happening bi-weekly. Star Wars Alliance is kind of sprinkled through over. That this week, the reason why it's kind of jumbled is because the stream got on the way and Katie had planned at the same time. So I appreciate her moving some things around and whatnot. So that'll be dropping soon. But that kind of China, I would say the best thing is to follow Star Wars Alliance, because most times she's aiming for Sundays, but she'll give you updates when it's dropping. Friday is Superhero Discussions. This is the last season of Spider-Man the Animated Series, and I think they're going to do Death in the Family, kind of whichever tale soon. I think.
Yeah, something. I think Greg just ordered it. I've had it. I haven't watched it yet because I was waiting for the two guys to get it. Travis just got his arrived, so I think once everyone's firmed up, I think I'll jump on for that, since we did Under the Red Hood together. So
yeah, so there's tons of stuff happening there, but then after that, they're going to be starting Batman the Animated Series, and I'm very, very excited to hear Greg, because Greg is such a Batman fan. I don't know if I've met such a big fan that's not seen that show. So that's what's interesting to me, that I think it's going to be, because that, to me, other than a comic book, I think is my favorite adaptation of Batman. Even counting live action, like live action for me, it's Nolan. But if you overall in all medium other than comic book, I think that's the one for me. and that's for a lot of people. So I'm pretty excited to hear his thoughts on that and the villains, and it's going to be a good time. And then in the weekend, you got Weird Science presenting the DC or Marvel's comic roundup with Jim, and then you have SES dropping on Saturday, Friday night they record. I'm believing you guys are back this week because last week you guys before the stream everything took the retro whatnot, so that'll be fun. It's always a good time, always some news, always some movies.
We got a guest coming on this week as well, Adam Lawson. He's got a new comic book coming out that he's doing an Indiegogo for. He was actually a guest of mine for Saga of the Swamp Thing, so he's promoting a new thing. So I said, why don't you come on Super Civil Servant? So he'll be our guest this week.
Perfect. So sounds like a good lineup of shows, but I think we're ready to get into our lineup shows unless there's anything you gotta throw out there.
Just one quick correction. I know I know eventually Ranger Alliance will start taking over the retros at that point. The retros for World's Finest are probably going through got about maybe 10 to 15 more to drop, so that'll probably take us through through at least maybe hopefully be done with dropping those in Marchish, and so that's when Ranger Alliance will take over the retro spot.
Yeah,
because DC
Sunday,
Alliance they said January 1st, and I was like, do they know something I don't?
No. And like, I swear to God, Greg said something too. He was like, oh, and I think there's more coming. I've literally said until 2021 where there's nothing else planned. There's nothing. We're focused on the shows. You can check out our Patreon. We're doing amalgam chats. Me and Travis have one plan that we're trying to do at some point in the near future. He's been busy with school. The stream came up. So last week we had it planned twice and both our work on the way. So we will do it. But no. Like Greg was like, oh, I think there's something else coming too. No, the best way is follow the Twitter accounts or listen to Marvel Alliance because I'm usually one talking to everybody. I'm a great idea. But yes, when Chris's shows, retros are done, that's when it will pair with Ranger Alliance. For now, it is every Thursday with Slice of Film. And once Mandalorian ends, we'll go from there. But that's still another 6 weeks away. So we'll figure it out. So
we will. You subscribe to the feed, you got it all. So
yes, but so that's everything. And again, finally wanted to thank you for your time on Saturday as well. It was lots of fun.
No, it was look forward to it. Happy to do it for a good cause. So
yeah.
All right. So yeah, like you said, we had a little light news at that point, some quick hits we'll get to.
Did you guys did you guys have a big thing last week or something? Like, was there some voting happening? I don't know. I'm
that. Yeah. Well, we had that. It's still, for some people, it's still going on. So leave it at that. At that point, I'd rather.
So that's why, folks, we're doing a full breakdown of the election tonight. So get ready.
I think I watched enough of election coverage for 72 hours at that point to the point of detriment. But thank goodness I have comics to read in the background. So
exactly.
But yeah, so we had some good news stories, some little light bits, and then we had a big one come out today with Entertainment Weekly. But we'll get to that in a second because we put out a poll because it was looking pretty decently light, nothing big story. But we put out a poll wanting to know what y'all wanted us to talk about, and so the winner of the poll was most wanted Marvel games that we want. So Travis and I had like, what's that?
That's not how it went first. We got our own of tie.
Oh yeah, we did. You're right. We did have a tie first at that point. Originally, I'd said this one had just eked out from our phase 4 plans at that point, and then someone snuck in and made it a tie.
And that happened last time too when we tried to pick our next comic book club. So anytime we need a decision right off the bat, everyone ties. We got to go to that 2-poll system. And I just thought it was pretty funny with the election too, with all these like, we're waiting for the results, and you messaged me. It's like, oh, it looks like we have time. Like, come on, we can't get anything clear around here. But yeah, so
nope. But that's when I decided to sue the people who.
Yeah, we sued all the Twitter votes. But no, I think this one maybe voted, or I think this one maybe won because I think the combo of Miles is coming out, and people, if they are getting consoles, are kind of, it's that time. This is the most exciting time to be a video game player right now, right? Is new consoles coming out. It's Christmas morning. There's Xbox out. There's PlayStation. Enjoy it all. So I think that's probably why this won out, just because people are excited for video games right now, and it's and people love Marvel, and maybe they'll love exactly what Square Enix is doing, as we saw some not so great results. But
I don't think they love Square Enix right now. So
yeah.
But yeah, so each of us kind of picked 3, I guess, characters and kind of what we would like to see in a video game. Again, it doesn't matter the platform. It's just the idea of the video game. I
Mhm.
think we'll kind of go with at that point. So, Travis, why don't you tell me what your first one is?
Well, all mine are mobile games. No, I'm joking, but no. So I have
Hey,
I
why
have
not?
yeah, maybe one day. I have three, and then when we end it, I have two honorable mentions that were really close. But
Okay.
I'll start off with my first one because it's in the thumbnail, so all of you all know it if you're watching the YouTube or the video. But so I chose Daredevil in a Arkham style type of game. Now the reason I chose this is because there's a few weeks ago. I don't think we ever actually made a news story, but we had talked about, I think at least you and me privately, or even with Brent, that the Marvel Games president and Troy Baker were like tweeting at each other, like very cagely, very like, oh, like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It maybe is nothing. It may be just them playing around, like, let's get people talking. But there was this moment where he referred him as like the man without fear. And that is one of those things where that character would be, and all these games I'll kind of have like a comparison to. I do think that's why lots of people, tons of time, will say, "Oh, Moon Knight is the Marvel equivalent to Batman." I do always kind of slot Matt Murdock and Daredevil more in that route. Like Batman's not a religious character, but they're usually both like questioning their sense of purpose and they're questioning morality, and they have a line of should I not, and that's why I kind of put that in that theme. As far as you get Daredevil in New York with a bunch of villains, you got Kingpin, you got just anybody you can pull from. As we saw with the Arkham games, as you see in other games, you don't have to stick to just your rogues gallery. Spider-Man games would do that too, like, oh, let's pluck someone there. So I think you have tons of potential. You have good side characters with Elektra, with Foggy. You can have a good outline of, I'm not sure how much you play as actual Matt Murdock, but I think if you found a balance, because the Arkham games don't really care about Bruce Wayne. Like Bruce Wayne's very much off to the side. That's the
outside
only
of that, the Arkham City intro at that point, that's
Yes,
about
which is
it.
fantastic. I
Mhm.
love being Bruce Wayne, like kicking people up and breaking people's hands with the cuffs. Like it was a really nice touch. So what I would do is I would take the Arkham style as far as the exploration, the combat, everything like that, kind of some of those villains. But the story wise, I would lean more towards Spider-Man PS4 and get that duality of Peter and Spider-Man. I feel we got a lot of Peter Parker in Spider-Man, which I enjoyed. I'm hoping Miles Morales. I'm not sure how much we'll get of Miles because of it being maybe it is a shorter game, but still, I hope in that game there's a good balance of maybe, I don't necessarily need 50%, but even 60% Spider-Man, 40% Miles, because if you could make Miles and Peter Parker not boring on screen, then you've done your job. And I think there's lots of ways they could do that, Matt Murdock. So he has lots of gadgets. You could have tons, you could have Stick in there. There's just kind of a plethora, as you've seen from the Daredevil Netflix show, from the movies, from comic books, of characters they could pull from. You have, I imagine you could do a great boss fight like the way in Arkham Origins they did Deathstroke and Batman. You could get that with Bullseye and Daredevil. There could be a great, like, really final boss thing. So I think, and again, too, you could almost start him of just like on a few blocks or something, and then expands. But that's kind of my go-to is a Daredevil kind of like Arkham style game. And I think there, even then, like the detective mode, you have Daredevil. He could have his like
Yeah.
sensor. Like there's tons of things you could kind of pick from that. So that's my first pick.
It would be interesting just because he's, his base of operations is Hell's Kitchen. So it
Yeah.
definitely, not saying he couldn't expand to greater New York because of Kingpin in a sense at that point. So it'd be interesting to kind of see how big they would want to expand that to not appear to be, a clone of, the Spider-Man kind of,
Mhm.
playground at that point, the sandbox. So no, I would, me, you say Daredevil, I'm there.
Or maybe, hey, you start the game off and he's in prison because his identity's been revealed, and that'd be
Hey,
very fun.
we'll come into the end of the Bendis run right into Brubaker.
Well, exactly. That would be like that. That's the same thing like you just said. And that could almost be the way of, again, almost more ripping off Arkham. But if they were like, well, we don't want to do New York exactly because it might be Spider-Man, but then they could do that. Well, let's put him in jail. So maybe you slowly make your way out to New York, and maybe that last third piece is you in New York. But the first bit of the game is you dealing with crime in there. Maybe they kind of make the prison a bit more eccentric, kind of like Arkham, where it's a bit more bigger, a bit more villains, stuff like that, a bit more flashier. But I think that would be great. And I think Daredevil is, I think he's big enough, especially I think we will get him in the MCU eventually, but I think he is big enough that people would be like interested enough to go, oh, I'd be curious to see this. And you get a good developer on it and you're good to go.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that. So my first pick would be a Punisher game.
Oh, okay.
And I want Insomniac to do it.
Okay.
You got, they Insomniac, they've, I want them to, kind of bring in the idea, the dark and gritty storytelling. and give it kind of a third person shooter. And why did I say in time? I meant Naughty Dog. That's what I meant. I meant Naughty Dog. I Insomniac for another one. Yeah, Naughty Dog, because again, we see them doing with Uncharted at that point, so they know how to tell a good story, but also they know how to tell grittiness as well with Last of Us. Not going to talk about the second one that much. They definitely go gritty with the second one, but a whole different story at that point. But to mix those two together, and I think that's the thing that Punisher is definitely, if you don't do it right, it becomes a one-note character and becomes a parody of himself. But there's more to Frank Castle, as we see in Cosmic Ghost Rider, than than just a guy that's seeking basically Batman without morals, at that point. So I just like the idea. I think we need a good story, and I think Naughty Dog has that kind of history to tell a good Punisher game at that point.
See, yeah, Naughty Dog, that's a really good pull, because Insomniac, I was wondering, because they've done a bit more like the family friendly stuff. So I'm like, okay, that'd be a big twist. So
that was my bad.
I, in my honorable mentions, did have a Punisher game. Mine was, even though now you've said Naughty Dog, I think I would like yours better, but mine was a kind of Grand Theft Auto style game where he is in the city, and it's like you have your side quests, and I kind of thought you have that most wanted system. So imagine anytime you're out Frank Castle, someone notices that skull, and maybe you change clothes. And did you ever play the Punisher game back in the day that they put up for?
I did at that point. Again, that's it wasn't necessarily made for the story, but it was just fun just to blow people away.
Oh, it was fun. But the other thing was, and we've been trying to track down a copy for a stream, and I'm hoping next year we will. It was, talk about a violent game. The way they would do these certain ways you could kill people, like putting a guy in a piranha tank, burning them to death. Like, it was a violent game. They went full out. And I remember there's one mission too where you end up at like Stark Labs, and that was really cool. So that's why it didn't make it my top 3. But that game is I've always wanted some follow up, because it's also annoying that the game ends in a cliffhanger. That, and the game that also ends in a cliffhanger. And the game is not like that amazing, but they made a game for X2, the Wolverine. It was, they made a game.
That, yeah.
Yeah, they made a game for X2, but it wasn't about X-Men 2 at all. It literally just had the title so it would sell, but it was about Wolverine and his origins and stuff like that. And
it kind of reminds me of the show Lucifer. Yes, it's based off the comic. The name. That's it.
That's 100%. It's that, and it's a movie poster. That's it.
Yep.
So like in this, the cliffhanger was he's like going to find Omega Red, and I'm still waiting for that game because I love Omega Red so much. But unfortunately, we didn't. Yeah, Clay says he loved the kills in that game. They were so creative, and that's why I thought whether it's Naughty Dog or Rockstar, I would love someone to take that and be like, we're doing it again. That's a character that would warrant all that stuff. So no, I think that's a great call. And I think there's just tons of, that's the classic, like guns, cars, you can do tons of stuff with it. Same thing of kind of like Daredevil or gadgets, but it's more like you got a stun grenade, you got this grenade, different looks of eras. So yeah, I think you're right as far as if you were to get a full on gritty, like really well told story out of Punisher, that would be it. Because I do think the closest we got was season 1 of the Punisher as far as like live action. Obviously comic books have done it a great job, but as far as other media, I think that's the closest we've got to I guess the only thing about that season I think of kind of loses its way a little near the end, but I still love the season. But that I would be there day one spending my money.
Yep. So what's your next one?
My next one is taking inspiration. This one definitely from Black Panther. And this I'll mention my other honorable mention because I went back and forth. But at first it was Iron Man because there was this thing when Spider-Man was coming out, people making this HUD the same way Iron Man was. And it was like, oh, this would be great. But I changed it up and I went with Black Panther just because I think a game, and I'm not sure because I know you're a PS4 guy. Have you played Horizon Zero Dawn?
Oh, yeah. No, I played it.
Yeah. So I'm thinking a game like that, but set in Wakanda, man, that would be spectacular because that game, it's a great game, has a really good story, but one of the best thing it has is the visuals. Every landscape is stunning, every place you go, every region. And I think with same thing, like these type of characters, especially about superhero characters, they lend themselves to skill trees. And Black Panther is much like an Iron Man, a Batman, where it's just like, imagine, okay, you get a suit and it has boom, 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 all these things you can do with this suit. I just think, and I don't think you need to do like kind of like the Avengers game where it's maybe a MCU kind of light or anything. Like I'd want them to go like very, very comic booky, very sci-fi, just make Wakanda luscious and lavish. And that would be it. Like honestly, like I'd want a good story. I'd want good combat, of course, but I would want a game just like even if it was just I'm not sure how you feel about Death Stranding and whatnot, but Death Stranding was one of my favorite games of all time.
Not my cup of tea. I mean, yeah. I'm impressed with the visuals, but it just Kojima, it begins and ends with me with Metal Gear. That is my favorite Kojima.
And that's completely fine because I remember when I first played, I was like, I don't know, and now it's like I don't know if it is, but it's tied with Arkham City as my favorite game of all time. Really? I don't know why that game just took me, but there's something about that game where if there's no action, no ghouls, no weird stuff going on, when it's just you and Norman Reedus just kind of going on this mountainside and you're just walking up it, and you would just look around you and it would be breathtaking for a video game to have these visuals, and it's just like journey, you know.
I feel that way. You know, you describe it. We talked off the chat, but I'll bring it up here. Now I just finished Ghost of Tsushima, and just the visuals on that, the way you describe, you know, Death Stranding is how I look at Ghost of Tsushima. It's just like the 100%. Visuals when it comes up in those quiet moments on anything is just outstanding, breathtaking.
So that's what I mean. Like, of course, I'm not saying like make a crap game, but make it look good. I'm just saying, if you make everything decent to really good, I'd be happy, but I'd want a Wakanda of just what you could do with it. And it's such a creative world and a different world. And it's that to me is kind of like, if you look at the things we've said so far, like, okay, me and Daredevil, that's kind of like a Batman game. Punisher, we've been there. We could see something like that. Wakanda, we've seen a few things they said that I kind of heard compared to Horizon Zero Dawn, like something like you said with Ghost and Death Stranding, but just that high tech science, but kind of mystical world at the same time. There's nothing that really jumps to my mind on a big scale that's really happened. So I would like them to take that route of kind of a Spider-Man. And that's even one you were talking about, Sami. I could see them doing that or some other studio. But yeah, that was my next pick. It's just like a adventure, third person, light RPG of, you know, you play as T'Challa or something. I don't know what it would be. There's many things you could go down, but I think it would be lots of fun.
Oh yeah, no, I think, and Clay says, you know, it's so beautiful. Horizon Zero Dawn was great, and it would be awesome to see Wakanda like that. Imagine that giant panther statue.
Oh yeah, yeah. I just think there's images and even the movie, that's the best thing, not the best thing, but one of the best things is they don't go to that many places in Wakanda, but there's such a different feel for all of it, you know, whether it's the tribal fighting, whether it's where M'Baku lives, whether it is just where their temple is, like just right there, seeing those textualized in video games, I think that'd be great. And the good thing is for most mainstream media with Batman and Spider-Man, that's why with Spider-Man the game, I really like it, but for me, as a longtime Spider-Man fan of the comic books and someone that's seen the Tobey Maguire series so much, once we got to, you know, minor spoilers for a game that's been out for coming on 3 years, once we got to, oh, this is the villain, I was like, okay, I've kind of been here before many times in my life, you know, this reveal of so-and-so is your friend, oh, he's the villain, and, you know, the second you walk in the room and he goes, hi, I'm Dr. Octavius, you go, oh, well, I wonder where this is going to end, you know, and that's the thing where I think with Black Panther, though, even myself who's read Black Panther comics, I'm not a savant in it, and I think there is routes you could go. There's even characters you could switch up, where with Doc Ock, it was like, we all know, if you've seen a Spider-Man movie, you know where this is going. Where Black Panther, other than the film, even look at animated stuff, he's been in cartoons, but Black Panther, the movie, was really him blowing up. And I think there's lots of potential that you could make a Black Panther game, but not have to feel to be so different. You know, you don't have that weight of how do we reinvent this character? You don't really have to. You just got to do a good adaptation of this character, because there's not been too many adaptations. So.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's a great choice. It's you know, it's just a question of, you know, I think it definitely is a lot, especially whenever we get the sequel to that out. It's definitely going to be talked about at that point to how we bring that in.
Oh yeah,
so, yeah. My choice, it's low hanging fruit, but I haven't seen it done, and I do want it done properly. Is a X-Men RPG done? You know, I want. I want my
you and I are the same on this one.
I want my ability to have an ever expanding team that I can switch in and out. And again, I mean,
the perfect game.
You have infinite amount. Well, I can't say infinite, but like so many characters that you can literally build different teams for and different ideas. And this is until it came out, I was thinking maybe Square Enix could be my developer at this point. Not so much right now. And just there are so many different choices for RPG at that point, or just something decent. And I mean, RPG has just become a very big kind of term, with,
Oh yeah.
Assassin's Creed. I mean, they could, Ubisoft could do something like that. Fanboy Clay, like X-Men Legends. Yeah, X-Men Legends, but my problem with X-Men Legends, it becomes a little more, that was my problem with Avengers, became just simple button mashing. I want just a little bit more than just simple button mashing at
See
that point.
that's where it's interesting because I'll reveal my third pick was an X-Men Legends 3 type of game. And this is because we can talk about that as far as I knew I had a good feeling you'd have an X-Men game, and I know I would have an X-Men game. And this is a good conversation because I've been thinking the same thing you have. Like, I like the Avengers game definitely more than you, but I see all its flaws, and I definitely agree with many people of like they dropped the ball in many different places, right? So like you said, maybe Square isn't the team, but
I think they were the team. I just think that they bit off a lot more than they can chew and overpromise in what they could deliver at that point.
And there's also some scuttlebutt that maybe they were pushed to get the game out a lot sooner and that hurts it a lot. Yeah. And that's where it's just, you got to hit this, you got to hit that. And that's where it is like, if this game was delayed another 6 months, could it have been even bigger as far as the game comes out and then the content. That's the thing of X-Men. That's why I said Legends of like, do you do the Legends? Because I love Marvel like Ultimate Alliance. And this game, I do really like the new Avengers because I do like a good button masher and whatnot, but I would like one thing I would think most people agree with the Avengers game is one thing that was great was the story. There's been very minor complaints, and most people praise it as something really good. So I would want, that's why I said X-Men Legends 3 to be safe, but I would want Avengers done in an X-Men way, but done more right. Whether that be the base main story game just being larger and just instead of being smaller to set you up for the multiplayer, make that the whole game. Or when you make this X-Men game, you make it that the second it comes out, you're hitting the ground running, ready to go. It's character after character. Because I agree with you, it's an RPG, but that's the thing of like, on an X-Men game, you're going to at least have 5 characters. And that's a hard thing to balance. Like, I think in the story of the Avengers game, they did it well, but now it's hard to balance of the content of how do you make this exciting, but how do you still make these characters unique? Because you could make the multiplayer and all the new characters come in, but do you sacrifice the characters being unique and not feeling different? So like an X-Men game is out there, but that to me it's such a hard cookie to crack. I want to see it. I'm like, I want it. And all these X-Men games that have come out before, these arcade fighters. Do you remember this X-Men game called Destiny? Do you remember that one?
Refresh my memory.
It was a game that came out in like the mid 2010s, and it was called Destiny. But you didn't play as any X-Men. You got to play as these like 3 X-Men they create, and you could choose like which side. And I hate when they do that type of stuff.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad mobile game.
Yeah, and it was just one of those where I always have gotten excited for X-Men, and I do like those Legend games, but I am waiting for
I do too, yeah.
The Batman, Spider-Man, like the X-Men game. But I think it's a hard one to crack.
Mm-hmm. And I do like the Legends. Like I've got to get back into. I haven't picked up my Switch in a little bit just because Ghosts and Avengers took my time. But I really do like, Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I really did enjoy that game. But I've gotten to the point right now where only so much can keep my interest, and at that point, I just need a little more challenge and a little something different at that point. So that's why I said maybe, Ubisoft can do that in a sense of making it a little more less and button mashing, not like do overextended with moves and different things like that, but just make it just a little more involved in a sense of doing different moves and have that accessibility that if someone does, I don't want to do the moves, which I love games are doing right now. If you want to turn on one button, you want to make it button mashy, go for it at that point. I really do like that they're putting those accessibility features in there.
So what's going to be interesting because that's where I agree with you. Ubisoft has that type of style, but the thing is you can't throw them as far as one game as like a big group game and say like, look, they did this, right? It's always the one player, one character. Mm-hmm. So that's why obviously they're in the Warner Brothers camp, but I'm very interested to see what Rocksteady does with Suicide Squad. I think Gotham Knights, I'm looking very forward to it, but that's already very different where as of right now, it's only the 2 people and it's a 4-person team, right? I feel like that's Correct. A bit more manageable. Suicide Squad, we still don't know if it's going to be, the rumors are it's going to be Avengers where it's going to be an online game, but that's not confirmed. My interest to see what they do could be a gateway to X-Men, because with Avengers, I think enough people will see and see, oh, this is what they did right and did wrong. But if Suicide Squad, that game can come out and blow the hinges off everything and kind of be not perfect, but very well done the whole way through, whether it's their story, their gameplay, and keeping people satisfied online, that will be the key for you to be like, okay, let's copy this, do this for them, and do it with X-Men, do a better Avengers. But at the same point, if Suicide Squad is like Avengers, they're going to have those same pitfalls, because we've seen that with things like Destiny and I can't remember, Anthem, like these games that are these games for service, and they come out and they fall flat on their face. Like Avengers did that, like it lost a lot of money. They're not saying what it sold, or they're just saying Square lost a lot of money, but it's one of those, it is a tough one to crack. And that's why there's no developer right now that can jump out and say, and that's why anyone lets us know in the comments or on Twitter, like, what developers made a game that's based, like the only one I can think of, but it's nothing like that, is when Rockstar did the 3-person GTA with GTA 5 it was, but that's very different, right? It's just switching characters. They don't have that many mechanics. They shoot a gun, there's not much difference between them. So finding a multi-person game, it's a tough one. So that's why I'm hoping Squad can kind of pull that off and be one of the first to. I think Avengers has done a decent job, but obviously it has enough people that I know are detractors of it, so it hasn't done that decent of a job. I hope Squad is the first one to knock out the park, so we could get more like that, or X-Men down the line, because that could lead to Fantastic Four, that could lead to a bunch of different teams, a Justice League game, which I really do think, my theory is that Suicide Squad is a setup for them maybe doing that in the future. It's just them trying this out first, but
yeah, and as Clay said, they're going to learn. The developers are going to learn from Avengers' failures in order to, fix what they didn't do right. And again, like I said, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse at that point with it. It's because I said I think that they did as much as they could, and I really do agree with you that I think they were up against a deadline, which they didn't want to do. And we do see many times what happens when you put arbitrary deadlines on developers and creatives. At that point, you do not get a good product release. Justice League. Anyways, so I like we said, we both have some sort of X-Men at that point. I really do like your idea of what that could be.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, what is your third one? Because I revealed my like I said, mine was an X-Men type of game too, so that I may as well just reveal it here. So
my last one is a Blade game at that point, and make it. Even though I'm terrible at this type of game, but I do appreciate it. I do like watching the Twitch streams and YouTube videos of people playing it. Are the Souls games. I think Blade is a really cool idea, and I think it could easily translate into the Souls universe between, you got the guns, the martial arts, vampires, superpowers. You could easily turn this into a good, rich history and really expand what Blade is at that point. And just the idea of the horror element. All the Souls games are known for their horror element. That's what defines it, besides basically being we're going to beat you down and you're going to have to keep coming back. And kind of, that's, they're not meant to be easy. That's the whole appeal of them, besides the graphics and the story. But they do horror really well. And I think that's what Blade is. You can really lean hard into that and do a really great job with it.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about Blade, but when you told me Blade was one of them, I thought that would be perfect, because one, variety of enemies would be huge. That's a good thing with different bosses, different vampires. You could make hybrids. You could do Souls. The other type of fighting style I thought you talked about earlier, would be Ghost of Tsushima, as far as they don't have guns, but they have bow and arrows. But that fighting system of the swords, you could easily use that with Blade. Now, the reason I don't think they would do that is because you're not going to bump into too many other vampires that are having those swords as well. But I agree with you as far as Souls. You know what I would say is a better route as far as to make mainstream would be almost more like Jedi Fallen Order, where Jedi Fallen Order took that action and gameplay of Souls, but kind of they did dumb it down. Like, I'll be honest, like they did make it more accessible to mainstream, but it was punishing. It was like, you got to learn to counter, you got to do this. You can't just go in there and hack and slash. Like, you got to approach these enemies the right way. And I think Jedi Fallen Order, that kind of style, because Souls is like so crushing, where someone from some little Jimmy might be like, pun intended, might be like, this game is way too hard for me. Or Jedi Fallen Order, it was tough, but there was times where it's like, okay, I can definitely get through this after a couple of tries. And Blade, I think you just have, and again, I wouldn't want him to do it as far as, because it'd be so weird. But my always dream Blade game was letting Hideo Kojima get his hands on it because he's always wanted to make a horror game. That's the rumor he's doing right now. And I definitely think you need somebody of that ilk as far as like a Resident Evil or Silent Hills or what he did even with Death Stranding. Like you'd need someone that does the combat and gameplay of Souls. But then, like you said, they've always had horror. But I think you got to ramp it up a little more with him. And you have great characters. You could have Dracula himself. You could work in Morbius. There's tons of things you could do with Blade. So I think that would be an just fantastic game.
Yeah. So those are our choices at that point. Would love to hear what you listeners have. So feel free to comment as we tweet this out, and would love to hear your options and what games you would like to see eventually come to the platforms. So before we get to our next story, do you want to take our first ad break?
Yes, we will. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, like Chris said, let us know if you got any on Twitter and then or on YouTube in the future. Throw to our first ad break. Gotta say, what did you say keeps the web fluid inspired? Natural web shooter guy. I like that one a bit better, but are going to throw some ad right now. They sometimes be a little bit loud, depends on your podcatcher. Sometimes they're not. That's great. This helps grow the channel. This helps feed the channel. This helps the lights on, like everyone's. But this helps support us. And yeah, thank you very much for listening to this. And then we'll be right back. And we're back. Oh no, Joseph. I see Chris is talking to someone. Joseph Corneri, why would you want that lesser console, man? You've started a fire in our YouTube chat talking about PS5 and the Xbox Series X. So because we were talking about this before, cast. This is my first Xbox I'm going to be owning since the 360 era. So I'm pretty excited. I Joseph Corneri, I would do the same thing as far as. Why not both? That's me, the Iron Man thing.
That's exactly what I just said. I said I don't like choice. That's why I own both.
yeah. But I do agree. I am a Sony pony. I'm in that camp of just purely not the. I never get, and it all depends what you want. We always talk about Let's Geek First. I don't care about graphics, whatnot. I guess why if I had a gun to my head, I'm always doing the Sony just because I love those solo games and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an exciting week for people. The new consoles coming out should be a good time.
Exactly. So, all right. So our next kind of main story it dropped today. We knew it was coming at that point with some preview tweets yesterday, but Entertainment Weekly put out their cover story this week is all about WandaVision. So big thing up front, there is no release date. They even put that in there. They said at the time of press.
I was wondering where you're going. Like, what is this big thing? Because this is going to be fun because I was talking about before, slammed work. So Chris going to give you guys this information. This is the first time I'm hearing about this other than a few nuggets. So I'm excited. I was like, what's this big information? Evan Peters confirmed as Quicksilver? No.
I mean, no mention of that. They're really keeping that under wraps. So I'm very happy that has not leaked yet.
Imagine if it's one of those rumors though that was a rumor that was never like real. We've had that happen before. Like remember Matt Smith in Rise of Skywalker? Who's he playing? Where is he? And I'm pretty sure like Deadline or Hollywood Reporter is one of the people that reported he was in that. Just never appeared in the movie. Just not at all. And imagine if that was Evan Peters. We finished that show. Yeah, that was not a real thing. So it would be funny. But yeah, no date. I'm not going to say not surprising because I agree. We were talking about this with Brent that with this whole rollout, I did think they'd have a date. And I know you and I talked about this, that you're confident that will hit December. If you had to ask me, I would say yes, but I still am on that bandwagon of like December 31st. Like I literally think because the thing that surprised me the most,
still makes it.
Yeah, you're right. But the thing that surprised me the most is it was 2 days ago, I think, when they said they were done filming. And I was in shock because I thought they were already done filming. So, yes, you can have the first episode edited and everything. But I feel like with them, it's a lot different than like Flash or Arrow when it's like 22 episodes a season where, of course, the first 5 you got to get done first before the whole season. These are going to be shorter seasons, so I feel like they'd want the majority of the season done and edited so there's no problems. They wouldn't want something where, put out the first episode and like, we had a snag with episode 2 or 3, we're going to have to delay it. Like, I think they'd want the majority of them done and edited. So them saying they were just wrapping film, that does make me a little curious and a little worried. I know we had something from, from Mexico or Latin, some Spanish account or something saying it was delayed, but that could be anything,
Yeah, it was based off of a promo in Latin America at that point. I can't remember what country specifically, but it was basically saying it wasn't going to be coming out this year based on the promo. But again, a lot of people said a lot of times some streaming services don't release necessarily day and date everywhere, which is unfortunate. I'm all about access and making sure everyone gets to see it at the same time, but it's their decision. So but yeah, so a couple of things. We got a couple. It was a decent article. Like some, not necessarily anything earth shattering, but just some interesting gems. They kind of go into kind of the plot. It is set after Endgame. The series starts with the married witch and android living in an idyllic town in Westview. We find Wanda and Vision living in a blissful suburban existence, trying to keep their powers under wraps. The show is about escaping into the soothing world of television, seems particularly timely in 2020. But as the newlyweds cycle through the decades and the familiar TV tropes, they realize their white picket fence life may not be as gleanly picture perfect as it seems. It is six. They did say it is a 6 hours. And they kind of call 6 hours at that point. They call it like 6 Marvel movies packed into what they're presenting as a sitcom. So I'm not sure if it's going to be 6-hour-long episodes or like 42 minutes at that point, kind of playing in that idea of like it's based off sitcoms. So, but we do have it is a total of 6 hours.
Because we had heard rumors before that it was not split. We had heard rumors that there would be 9 episodes, and that could make sense too if some episodes are half an hour to 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I would prefer, because even as somebody that is as critical as The Mandalorian, with season 2, one thing I do prefer is with both episodes being longer. I just think things are less rushed. And the people have that argument of like, I like the short episodes, that quick bite size, but I like so far both seasons of the episodes of Mandalorian, the length of them, and I would prefer if I had the all depends on what's best for the story, right? And we're not behind the editing screen, so we don't know. But if you're just asking me with just as a fan, I go, I would prefer the 6-hour-long episodes opposed to the 9, maybe half an hour episodes. But if you're thinking also from a business perspective, it might be better to have those 9 episodes because you stretch it out, right? And I hope it's not a business decision. I hope it's this is best for the story, not, hey, cut these and make it 2 episodes, just so we could get people for a few extra weeks on Disney Plus.
Well, I think it's also tied into, since we know that the different decades are going to represent the different, TV takeoffs or the parodies at that point. So, at some point we're going to come and we're going to start seeing hints of the modern world. So at some point we're going to get probably a very episode outside of the world focus of what happens. So but
I have a question, but you know what? I think whenever we get that premiere day, I'll save it because I think it'd be good for us to do maybe a predictions cast before that show happens. Because one of my questions was going to be, well, what episode do we think that we'll start getting some inklings? But you know what? We'll save, as Maz Kanata says, a story for another time, which we still never heard the story.
Exactly. So we got some images. We got some new release photos. So there are about 6 images. The first one we see kind of, Wanda and Vision kind of inside the black and white, smiling at each other over the stove. Second image, we get them in there, which was typical in the 40s and namely the 50s with the separate beds. That was very notorious. You cannot, if you've ever seen one of my favorite movies is Pleasantville, such a outstanding movie that kind of talks about that idea and how scandalous it is to have a bed where the married couple is sleeping in the same bed.
That's something I learned at an early age with my grandparents, who still did it to the day my grandfather passed away. So it's it was a thing. It was a thing.
It was. Old habits die hard, right?
But yeah, it's cute. It's like I'm not sure if this is coming up because I have the notes here. But one thing I saw, because I think Discussing Film had tweeted this out about how they had actually talked to Dick Van Dyke about just that experience. And again, that's something they don't need to do, but I just thought, oh, that's fun. So I do think usually whatever you want to say about Marvel, if you're pro MCU, if you have some problems with it, one thing they always do is they pay attention to detail. And they could have easily just went, oh, we got a good idea of what we're going to do here. We're fine. But like, no, let's go talk to a Hollywood legend who was around for this type of format of TV and what is, even to make it feel authentic to that time. So that's what that picture, when I saw it, I was like, I saw that, and then I saw the quote a little bit later, and those just melded together of, that seems perfectly right. So again, I think with all that type of really fun, cutesy stuff like hitting the arrows, I think that's going to be a non-issue. They're going to do very well, and it's going to be very fun to see them play with those arrows.
Yeah, and so We get a couple of images, but the next one, it was interesting. We get our Catherine Hahn's mysterious character, who I think is Agnes at that point. She's portraying the nosy neighbor, also noisy too. But we know that her again, I see her as an antagonist in this show more than anything else. And then we get our first look at Wanda being pregnant. And with hopefully our twins, hopefully we get to get their official MCU introduction at that point. And then one of the last ones is Wanda's confused reaction to unknown circumstances from the show, seemingly hinting at even more Wanda is not totally has a grasp on reality, So, yeah, I mean, it was cool definitely seeing these images. Another big interesting fact is that this was the first episode was filmed in front of a live studio audience with very, very, very strict NDAs at that point. They said last year, the notoriously secret Marvel Studios did something unprecedented. It opened up its set to visitors. So for the Wanda premiere episode, Marvel's first Disney Plus show went full mid-century sitcom filming in a classic black and white in front of a TV audience at that point. So that's kind of cool. Again, they're really leaning hard into how the first kind of sitcoms were done. And I kind of like that homage.
Yeah, again, this is when I had seen this, it just reminds me that this show is going to be a big testing ground, I think, for Marvel. And it's one of these things that they don't have to do. They could easily lay on their laurels and just keep doing really big box office budget, kind of more action comedy route. And this could have elements of that. But like I said before, this is getting weird. And obviously, we talked about the success of the trailer. People, especially I think right now because of COVID, are ready for new Marvel, ready for new MCU. They just want to be excited for something again. But it is still that test of, like lives. That's a weird thing to do nowadays. So comedies don't do that anymore. And I think it's really fun and unique, but it just shows that I think they are trying their best to make the show very different. Is that going to turn some people off? Potentially, but I think that's a good thing with them doing on Disney Plus is, millions of dollars of box office budget aren't on the line. And it's a good tester because you can just do one season of it. It could lead to more seasons. We don't know what the story is going to go, but if it's not well received, well, that's fine. And you just move along. It's not like a movie might leave a bigger mark on it. So they're definitely getting weird.
Yeah, Joe is asking in the chat, they're done filming everything. Yes, this has been wrapped for a little bit now. That's why they kind of moved it to the front. It was the most nearest done at that point. The big always question, since we've known that this ties directly into Doctor Strange's Multiverse of Madness, is like how much homework is the expectation for going to the show? And Kevin Feige had
stated, you have to see it or you're an idiot, and then that was the quote.
Yes, exactly, because he's that crude about it. He did say, like, if you haven't seen any of them and just want to step into the weird thing because you love the Dick Van Dyke Show, it's going to work. But if you've been tracking the 23 movies we've made and been following along the stories into phase 4, there'll be a wealth of rewards waiting for you as it all unfolds. And I like that. I like, but there does come a point. It's a very thin line, and you and I have said this many times before, is that Marvel's getting into the era that you can't always expect certain films. When you start getting into sequels at that point, new movies, yes, new shows possibly, but there will be some level of homework to be done. But I'll be very curious to see, and I'm going to try to, when watching this, to see, did they really do that successfully? Could you watch the show without having done too much homework at that point? So
yeah, I agree. I guess it's something that I always feel a bit more on the outside of. I do understand the point of, hey, is this going to be too much? But Endgame was the proof of all that, and it's the biggest movie of all time. To me, that was the proof of you literally have to see all these movies. And I know many people, not many, but I know a few people that didn't see all those movies. They went, they watched it because the biggest movie was a big finale, and guess what? They still enjoyed it. That's the thing where sometimes when I see the complaining, it's either two things. I see the mainstream people are going to be fine and they're just going to go watch it if they like it or if they're interested. And if they're not, they'll move on. And then when I see like people in our sphere or people that listen to these podcasts say, oh, I don't know if I want to watch all this, you're very 99% nine likely going to be watching it anyways. If you are listening to this podcast right now, you're going to be watching WandaVision no matter what. So when people go, oh, well, I got to tie, I think it's the same way. I know people are worried because it's Disney Plus and it's a lot different, but I think it's the same way as anything, at least for the mainstream or people that are just casual Marvel fans, where they will make it, of course, if you read or if you watch the movie, you will like it, you'll enjoy it. But if you had watch the show or watch the previous movie, you'll get a better understanding of it. You could probably still enjoy Endgame, but when they go back in the past and you'd seen them all, you enjoy it a lot more, right? So I don't think anything's changed. I think they've always tried to keep that line, and I think they will. I don't think they're gonna start Doctor Strange like in the middle of WandaVision, be like, what has happened? And the twins are like, I think they'll slowly like breadcrumb feed you into the story. They've never done that, and maybe the most is Endgame, but that was a different circumstance because that was Avengers, and almost everybody had seen Infinity War at that point. That was a huge movie, right? So most of the time they give you crumbs. They get you seated down the picnic area. They get you some chips and salsa, and they say, okay, here's the main course. They don't just shove the sandwich right in your face. They build up to it.
There you go. Gotta get that food reference.
You don't know my life, Travis. Family Clay says, you don't know my life, Travis, but I will watch it. Yes, I had to get the food reference. But that's the thing. We say that, but it's just like, and I get that. There's a point where, like, I know Nathan has said that he's probably not going to watch Thor Love and Thunder because he's not that interested in it. But the good thing is for Nathan is either he's going to have people around him that'll tell you, or honestly, for people that are worried, we'll have to know too much. There's going to be Google. You just have to Google, what do I need to know about what happens in WandaVision? You'll get your 5 like bullet points. Okay, I'm going into Doctor Strange. I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue. Maybe it'll change when we watch WandaVision, but I just think that people have blown up that issue a bit too much. Like, oh man, it's a lot, but who knows?
Yeah. But kind of like you said, they've leaned really hard into the idea of the sitcom. They kind of said we went to sitcom school. They talked to Dick Van Dyke, kind of about his experiences, lots of questions about his 5-season run on his show. No, not 5-season run, but excuse me, his run on his show at that point to kind of get, again, they're going to be little parodies and winks and nods to those shows. We know we're going to get the Brady Bunch and Family Ties and kind of all that kind of stuff. So it's cool. And even that they filmed in locations and studios where, you had Fathers Knows Best, The Partridge Family, Bewitched were at that point filmed at. So it's kind of cool doing the homages to that. And one of the, kind of directors, showrunners, Matt Shakeman was saying, being surrounded by these ghosts of television past, including my own ghost, because he has his own past in this experience. He said this setting further helped give WandaVision a sense of fakeness, according to the director. And it's interesting because that he uses that word, fakeness, because that's what this show is looking at. Looking at this whole fake, as I said, this pocket universe that Wanda has created unknowingly.
Yeah, that's the thing that I think they're definitely, even that, as far as what this show is going to be about, I think they're going to, maybe not the first episode, but very, for the people that are mainstream, feed you the crumbs again and be like, something's not right, something's wrong. And we've already seen it in the teaser, right? When they asked them, like, how did you guys get here? And you can see Vision and Wanda both like shaking and like things are going awry. Something's not right. And that's good because you could have it as far as one is pulling clips and things from things she's seen as a child or in her youth, right? And that's the best thing about shooting on these sets, that you kind of have that inspiration. So yeah, I would have loved to have been in that meeting of them talking to Dick Van Dyke, because I'm sure they just asked him about like, oh, what was your experience? Give some tips. How was it back in your heyday? But I would have loved to see them then continue to pitch the plot of WandaVision and then into Doctor Strange and just see what his reaction would have been. Especially we don't know what's gonna happen, but then like, oh, and then she's gonna marry this robot, and her and this she's a witch, and her and this robot are gonna create these children, but then the children are gonna possibly disappear, and that's gonna create this huge ripple. And just Dick Van Dyke being, oh, I just thought we were just gonna talk about some comedy. So that's what I want to see on Disney Plus, is that meeting with Dick Van Dyke and what they talked about. But no, it sounds like they're doing everything right to make people like myself interested in the show even more.
A little side thing, I just got notified that looks like this, this Latin American ad that's come out, this very long ad, looks to be in one of the screenshots advertising for Disney Plus. Scene from Spider-Man Homecoming is very clearly seen.
Yeah, so that's weird because that shouldn't be able to happen, right? But
Nope.
again,
Nope. Of course it's not happening.
I still think it is happening
Oh,
because
I agree.
it's yeah, just because now there's just been like that's the third thing I think we've seen now of like why is Spider-Man movie on Disney Plus? I don't know, but hey, we've talked look at the last few weeks, whether it's Olivia Wilde, whether it's Electro and just other stuff seems like they're working more together. So it
Yeah.
definitely could happen.
Yeah. So looking at obviously talked to both our main cast members, Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen, and they talked to Elizabeth Olsen looking at the idea of this is the first time we've really gotten a depth into Wanda's character and what's going
Oh
on.
yeah.
She says, it's been the biggest gift that Marvel has given me getting to do this show. You get to just focus on her and not how she felt through everyone else's story. That already felt ownership of her because Marvel's always encouraging you to be part of the process. But even more now, I feel like I have really a strong sense of ownership. If anyone wanted to ask me a question about the future or just a question about what she would think, I feel like this time has been provided. That's really good because that's what we need of this show, because we haven't this is going to be the post effects of everything that Wanda has gone through. And for as much as she's gone through losing vision at that point, I mean, this makes sense. She is having a massive break with reality, literally.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, and I think that's great. That's been the biggest thing. And that's why, honestly, I guess I've always said with phase four, the Disney Plus slate has made me more interested than the film slate. One, it's because characters I already know and love, not even from the movies, just from just someone like Hawkeye that I've been a big fan of all my life, opposed to an Eternals, right? That I need a bit more selling on. But they're taking things like Hawkeye, like WandaVision, especially now with Bucky, a character I think desperately one of the most character that needs lots of character development because he has been to me a plot device for most of his time there. He's been good and I think he's been used well, especially he's been good for Cap, but it's always just been we got to get Bucky or we got to stop Bucky for almost 3 movies, and then in Infinity War and Endgame he's pretty much just non-existent. He's just Steve's friend who's really messed up that has to shoot things, like he has very little of an arc other than that Winter Soldier of I didn't kill Captain America, and that's it. I've been a struggle guy. So I think that's a good thing with these Disney Plus shows. They're going to give these type of characters that maybe in the movies the plot wasn't centering around them, so they didn't get a chance to really shine or get development. Same thing. You could have Endgame be the end for one and be like, okay, she's, they won. She's sad that Vision's not there, but she's off her own. But no, this is going to show that she's going through a lot more than people can maybe understand. And I think Disney Plus will afford them the time to do that. And that's what gets me excited. That's why even something like Moon Knight, who's a new character coming in, it's like, well, maybe in the movies he wouldn't have got a big spotlight. Same thing with She-Hulk. So Miss Marvel was one that sometimes surprised me because I thought she would maybe potentially go to the big screen first, but even then that will be a great way to set her up. So I think it's,
and that has supposedly started production officially today.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think Wanda is one of those characters that really needs it, and I think that's a good thing with her characters. Each movie and each time we've seen her, I think we've learned more about her and grown to like her more. At least I did. I always was a fan of her, but it just seemed like every movie, kind of like Hawkeye, was more attached. So I think after this series, it's going to be interesting. I still have my tinfoil hat on that. I don't know if she's going to make it out of this whole WandaVision Doctor Strange sort of setup. I think there's a potential of a bad fate hurt coming her way, but either way, I think it's good that we finally get to kind of showcase her. And Elizabeth Olsen's also a great actress. People don't talk about that enough. She's done more than just the MCU, and she can be a phenomenal actress given the right material. So also gets me very excited.
She did refer to her time watching her sisters on Full House. That was kind of interesting,
oh, yeah.
giving
That's
a
cool.
nod. But the final part of this, which was interesting, is talking about the shuffling around, because as we've talked about over and over again, that this was not supposed to be A, the intro to Phase 4, and B, not our first Disney Plus show. But they did give a comment saying, with the pandemic shuffling release dates, Marvel is also taking extra care to ensure the new schedule won't spoil story continuity. Because remember, we also talked some switches of movies as well, and how when it's releasing. I think it was Shang-Chi had moved ahead.
It was originally behind Eternals, but now they've swapped places where it's going Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and Eternals. So a 6-month switch up is pretty big in my opinion. I know they'll probably talk more about in the future, but that one is still always have a question mark of why did this happen? It's probably for these reasons you're talking about.
Yeah. So again, reading the article, it was very well written, definitely gave some good tidbits. Again, I think there is a reason that this is coming out now, even though we still don't have a release date. I say if it doesn't happen this month, like, we've heard from Charles Murphy looking at some of the code at that point. I say we get our release date at the investment call in December.
I'm trying to look at my calendar here. What is the last week of Mandalorian? So we have 6 more episodes of Mandalorian, right?
Yeah.
So it takes us the 13th, 20th, 27th.
I think it takes us right before Christmas week.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it ends on the 18th.
Yep, that's
so
Christmas.
Yeah, so if the December call or the investors call is the 10th, that is a week and a day before. So that could make sense of you get the announcement at the investors call, and they could even say, and guess what? At the end of Mandalorian, you're going to get like your final trailer as well for WandaVision, or just even that day to kind of go, handing off the baton. And then I do think that week of New Year's Eve is prime, because with Christmas week, they have, obviously it's Christmas week, so it's busy, but Soul's also coming out. They could easily double up and put them all at the same time, but I feel like they would maybe want them to let Soul have its week, have its moment. And I think that's much more like
that movie needs to have its own week, because it is everything that I've been hearing and seeing is outstanding.
I agree. And I think that's where Soul, even with Soul looking great, I think we all know with what that WandaVision trailer did, it'll get lost in the shuffle if WandaVision comes out. No one will be talking about Soul. They'll talk about Soul the next week after. Oh, it's great. But everyone talk about, did you see this weird thing? What's going on? And I also think Soul's great for Christmas. WandaVision at Christmas, from what I'm seeing in the show, doesn't look like that. Come on, family, let's gather around and have a good time. So that's why I could see them saying, hey, guess what? New Year's, it's a weird thing to do, but guess what? It's COVID world. I would hope you don't know what's happening in a few months. Maybe there's a vaccine, but I would hope most of you are not planning on going to have a bunch of New Year's Eve parties, right? So there's going to be a lot of people, hopefully.
Not in this house.
Yeah, same here. So I would hope there's a lot of people stuck at home being like, we're going to watch. There's not even going to ball drop, because there's not even there will be, but there's not going to be people. So it's just like that to me. Any other year, I'd say, don't drop a New Year's Eve, because people will be busy and they'll forget about you. But even if there are some people that go to a party or have many gatherings, if they're drunk and hungover the next day, look, New Year's Eve, it came out. And then New Year's Day, if people are tired, they got the day off of work, they have 2 days to watch it, So a lot of the Soul talk of this episode. Well, the Soul's an important thing. But yeah, I honestly do think that December 31st date is perfect, because lots of people will be home New Year's Eve.
Travis talked pretty one day.
Yeah. Chris, watch out, it's Lex Luthor. You know what? I'll take it sometimes. I didn't know if it was a compliment or not for Travis to describe me as a very evil man doing malicious things, but doing kind things for charitable at the same time. Like, you are just describing Lex Luthor. But I honestly, looking at now, I think New Year's Eve is perfect, because then you have New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, lots of people will be off. And then right after that, Chris, is the weekend. So you have 4 days of clear of lots of people being off work, that they could talk about it, everything like that. Even then it could drop on a Wednesday, because I'm pretty sure maybe it was Tuesday. But remember, the first episode of Mandalorian was like a Tuesday, right? And then the second was a Friday, like in season 1 when they launched it, right? They did 2 in 1 week. So they could maybe, even then, if they don't want to drop New Year's Eve, drop it the Wednesday before, and then you have 4 days of people off work, lots of people off work. So that is my Trask Snell prediction. I'm staking my claim on New Year's Eve week. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're on a hot streak these days, so why not cash in while you're
I hope, yeah.
Gotcha. As my boss will say, I bet you a free cup of coffee in the break room.
Exactly. You can send it over here to Canada.
Exactly.
They won't let you. It won't get past the border. And knowing my Canadian Post, my Xbox, it won't get here till a week and a half after. So the coffee's gonna be gross. But yeah, I'm excited for the show. Me and Brent talk about this every day. I just want it. I want any MCU thing, but I want an MCU Disney Plus thing specific, because the same thing with Star Wars, that first episode of Mandalorian. I just want to see how it is. Like, I want to see it in motion, what it does, what their vision is, and no pun intended. So I hope we get it sooner rather than later.
Exactly. So, all right, before we get to our quick hits of news, you want to take our second ad break?
Yeah, we'll take that, and then we're going to talk about a bunch of news. So we'll be right back in just a moment. Everything we'd said before about ads is the same here. So we'll be right back. And we're back. Finally getting to hear about Budapest. Hey, Chris?
Yeah, looks like it at that point. So Screen Rant spoke to, actually, a new excerpt for that Marvel's Black Widow, the official movie special book via Screen Rant, has confirmed that the plot of Marvel Studios' Black Widow will finally explore the story behind Budapest that was teased back in 2012's The Avengers. Scarlett Johansson talks about this, saying, we all agreed that we had to find what happened in Budapest. That started out as a throwaway line, which the director threw into Marvel's Avengers as a funny moment between Hawkeye and Black Widow. That's Clint and Natasha talking about their history, and you get a fun little Easter egg for fans to theorize about. We thought about it. If we didn't go back to Budapest and find out what really happened there, people will feel unsatisfied. I wonder what did happen there. We often talked about what was going on in Natasha's head. I really think that Natasha is haunted by the fact that she has this in her past and feels guilty about it. Unfinished business is that sense of guilt that follows her around, which all stems from what happened in Budapest. Black Widow is not about what happened in Budapest, but it's a huge jumping off point for us to understand the heaviness of Natasha's burden. So I'm glad. I think it needs to be at least understanding, and I think if it's a entry point to this movie, I think that's a really good way to start.
So you look at that's why you watch live YouTube every time. You look at Travis Hines and he asks us a question. And he says, would you be pissed if they made the story of Budapest kind of a joke like they did with Furious iCat? Doesn't sound like it will be funny. So that's the thing of, I'm a guy who very, very much dislikes prequels because there's sometimes just this idea of what you get in your head. And I think a few years ago, Budapest would have been fine. I do wonder if we're at that point. It could just be something fun. We explain it, but I do just wonder if it gets to that point of not even a joke, Travis, if it just gets to the point of we watch it and we go, oh, okay, that's what it was. It wasn't some, huge event. They didn't have some weird sex party. It was just a mission. And that's what they did, and that's my worry with Budapest is I wish they didn't say a single thing about this. I wish they would say you never know, because now even us knowing that Budapest is going to be in this show or the movie, I feel like now already we're thinking about what it could be, what it means. And I wish they didn't mention it. And I think it would have a bigger impact as a surprise. So I personally don't think we need to see it. There's tons of people that always said we need to see it, but I'm excited. I think obviously that pretty much that's just them low key confirming that Jeremy Renner's in this, at least in some portion, right? So it's just like, they don't say that, but it's just like, we're not dumb. Like it's just being like, oh, we also prequel to the first day she met Tony Stark. And it's like, well, then he has to be in it. Also, we're going to talk about that rumor, like a thing in the second, but it's just like, oh, we're going to preview the first day she met Loki. Oh, so Tom Hiddleston. So this is their kind of fun way of, I think this and Wonder Woman are both suffering from, I'm not going to talk about the theatrical stuff, just suffering from they're not spoilers, but the more and more these movies get weighed out, the more and more these actors and directors are talking about this thing like it's almost already happened. Like even I've appreciated some of the quotes we've talked about from her and Florence Pugh, but they sound like quotes that people would be talking about after you've seen the movie. Like we talked about before, Black Panther, we had an idea race would be in there, but we didn't know how much till we saw the movie and then they talked about it. This is the reverse where they're talking about it, but it's like we haven't seen the movie. So I just feel like now we're getting I just wish, honestly, yes, I'd wish the movie to be released, but I wish they would stop talking about it. I wish there'd be no interviews. I wish there'd be no more new image of Black Widow. Don't show me an image for Black Widow when it's 8 months away. This means nothing for me. So I hope they're honestly kind of done talking about it, because I worry of like between us, would you agree the worst kept secret in the MCU is that the Thunderbolts are coming and it's because of this movie? Because I would. So it's just like, yeah. I feel like it's slowly. So now we know Jeremy Renner's in this movie. We know Thunderbolts are like against out of this movie. I feel like the longer we go and the more they talk, they keep revealing little chunks. It's like, I don't want to know where, if we would have saw this months ago, it would have been, oh, Jeremy Renner, oh, the Thunderbolts. But now it's like, why do you guys keep delaying Winter Soldier Falcon and Winter Soldier so much? And it's like, so now we know for sure that's connected. So there's like these mini spoilers that they're all full on putting out in Front Street, but it's kind of behind. Like you can see it blurry. You can see it. It's like Toby when he's putting those glasses on Spider-Man. It's like you know what it is. You don't know how it goes, but you know what it is. And I just want them to be done talking about it.
No, I agree. I mean, I try. I mean, a lot of the stuff like there was more images released. I don't even look at the images anymore just because I'm trying not to be spoiled by things. You know, when it comes to this stuff, it doesn't necessarily spoil it to me because I kind of half expected we would be going into Budapest or making some reference and giving. I'm not expecting the full story, but I do think that we'll see something of a jumping off point to kind of understanding. And I like the joke. You and I remember Budapest quite differently, you know. So it's a fun idea.
Yeah, Joe points in the chat. He says, yes, Black Widows is 5 years too late, not including the delays. I agree, but at the same time, if you got to look back in Marvel's history, they also had a guy who was heavily in charge of doing the movies that didn't want female or people of color getting those type of films. Not Kevin Feige, a purple letter who literally said, like, why would we make a Captain Marvel movie? That won't sell toys. This is the guy that didn't want Black Widow toys to be sold. So I agree with you, but that was the circumstances Kevin Feige was dealt where I think you would have got a Black Widow movie a lot earlier on, but I think assholes honestly just kind of stopped it from happening. And Travis Hines says Fortnite is doing a Black Widow themed tournament next weekend. They're already promoting it. Could have anything to do with the potential release. No, I bet it's just because we were supposed to be getting Black Widow in November and they probably planned something with Fortnite thinking, oh, we're going to get it. And no, I don't think so. I know we talked about this last week, the phase 4 predictions. I think we're still at the point where they're going to wait a little bit more of if they would put anything on Disney Plus or Premier Access. So I think if they get to March, or is it March or May? It's May, isn't it?
It's May. They basically technically delayed it a year from its original.
I think if they get to May and the world is still in shambles, that's when they really start to go, okay, we might just have to find a way just to get this out there and release it. But I think now they're going to hold on to that date. So I don't see any shifting as of right now. I think they'll stay put for now.
Yeah, again, I think once Tenet didn't do as well as they expected at that point, I think everyone kind of got scared, and rightfully so at that point. It wasn't necessarily that was the test case didn't go so well for many different reasons besides just COVID. But again, I think they're fine waiting it and then waiting till May to kind of see if they're going to pull that ripcord. So, but our next one, it's still involving Black Widow. Marvel's Black Widow, Robert Downey Jr.'s cameo rumored to be in doubt. So this comes from Twitter user. I don't know it at this point, but it kind of picked up some traction. So that's the only reason I'm putting it in here.
A Twitter user, I don't know it.
I don't know it at that point, but it started gaining traction with different stuff. But I have not been.
This is what happens when an election happens, folks. The news, we're light on it, but you know what?
We're light on it.
That's my quote of the episode from Twitter. I don't know.
I don't know at that point. You never know. You can put anything out there, but saying that the user is. And it's a real credible one at that point at 5150 augment. And I even reading it out at that point, it's just like, oh, you know, how did this get picked up? But has put into doubt the chance of Robert Downey Jr.'s cameo in the upcoming MCU release. You know, Downey's appearance was reported. The possibility of it was reported by Deadline. Basically, the idea saying that from his sources attached to the film saying that there's no cameo scene in the movie. It's really doubtful. Not sure all these official folks are trying to hide it at that point, but for sure, there probably will not be any scenes that Deadline mentioned in September 2019. I've been the kind of person that says Tony needs to go away for a while. In the sense, like, I know it's technically a flashback movie, if we want to call it that at that point, you know, but he's not necessary to this movie outside of maybe a vague reference to why the event, what happened in Civil War, you know, that's all it really needs. It seems will be thrown in. Let Tony be for a while at that point, because we're going to get other villains that are made up by Tony Stark anyways. So he's not really dead as long as we keep making up villains about him that haven't been found by him. So
I'm not as harsh as Nathan on it, but I'm pretty not a fan of it either. I think that to me makes a lot of sense. I never thought he was going to be in this movie just because if the world was normal, we would have had Spider-Man and then this. And I think him coming back already would have been way too soon because you want to feel that death. So same thing with Steve. When people are like, oh, will he be in Falcon Winter Soldier? I don't want him to be. Maybe a few years down the line, sure. But right now, no. You have to feel the emptiness of that character being gone. If you're just back right away, it goes, oh, okay, well, I guess you're dead, or I guess you're old man Steve, but we could talk to you at any point, or we could just flash back to you at any point. No, you want people to feel gone. So to me, that makes sense. There could be, like you said, some sort of, you know, some sort of flashback, or using, sometimes movies do this where they use scenes that they filmed in like a deleted scene, but then they use it elsewhere. Like I remember that with Spider-Man, they did some scene with James Franco and Willem Dafoe that they shot back all the way Spider-Man 1, and they use it in Spider-Man 3 as like a new scene. Maybe something like that. There's deleted footage, but I don't think he showed up to shoot anything new.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Like I said,
So talking about Twitter users, I wanted to just like this is just breaking the fourth wall. I wanted to talk about this thing that's going on in our group chat right now. Of Clay, he put out a tweet.
What's going on?
We're having some fun. So he put out this tweet from Casey Walsh saying, "If the stuff I'm hearing about Marvel Studios is true, it's going to be a wild." I think he meant to say,
"What kind of tweet is that?" It has Doctor Doom sitting down. I say, what is that? That gives us nothing outside of, yes, Doctor Doom's coming.
And Disney Plus subscription really going to pay off. And then he said, and then Katie says he is the most reliable, but I wouldn't doubt. Katie playing Switzerland. Katie says he's not the most reliable, but I wouldn't doubt it, Clayton. So here's the only reason I wanted to shout that out is because I remember when you and I were starting this podcast, I think that maybe even before Marvel Alliance, and then we won't talk about this too long, but there was rumors of, and again, kind of from that tier, I'd say like C plus, but people saying like there's been talks of maybe doing Doom on Disney Plus's series, and we thought, would that be too big? But it is funny that clearly that's what that guy would be inferring, right? That, hey, Disney Plus, and that might be some of Doctor Doom. I just want to ask you in general, not even Doctor Doom, just like as a fun talking point, because it's spontaneous. Would you, like, I imagine you'd be down, but like, how would you feel about that approach of, let's say, having a villain? Like, let's say there's no Fantastic Four. Let's say it is Doom. Let's say they start a Disney series with Doom, and instead of doing the reverse where it's like you meet the hero, you villain, you meet the villain, and that transition in the movie. That'd be a very different way of doing things. And, I of course would be interested, but that'd be the only thing we would have seen similar is if Joaquin Phoenix Joker did become a Batman villain, right? Because it'd be like, oh, we met the Joker first, and then he went on to be in a Batman movie. But that hasn't happened yet. Likely won't happen. I'm not saying past, and it's just any Batman is like, we always meet the hero first. So that would be a very different way of doing things.
Yeah, and I think that's where Disney Plus is going to strive. You and I have talked about this is where they can get experimental outside of the obvious of WandaVision at that point. Yeah. But, this is where, again, after Endgame, now it's what's next. How can we make it sound like, oh, it's another cookie cutter superhero movie, or it's another cookie cutter superhero show? This is the time where they can show we are willing to push the envelope. We are willing to try things that are different, weird, and try to hook you in a different way to bring other people into this and show Marvel, the MCU is bigger than just your Thor's, Captain America. It's much more diverse. It has the stories are going to draw you in, and we're going to show you different ways to look at these characters.
And I think if you were to do it with any sort of villain, Doom would be the first one to try, because I think lots of people just see Doom as this guy in armor with a lot of powers. You read a story like this is a guy at one point who sacrificed the love of his life, took her heart out of her chest just so he could
He watched a lot of Temple of Doom to get that done.
Just so he could become more powerful. And he hated doing it. He hated every moment of doing it, but he had to sacrifice
sorry, that's bad. Honey, I'm sorry. I gotta rip your heart out. I'm sorry.
But that's the thing. That's how complex of a character Doom is, right? And I think he would be, it would be interesting. Clay said, Katie, quick to cut me at the knees. And Joe said, not just Doom, probably for, and you and I, and we won't talk about that because you and I talked about that months ago when we did that Fantastic Four thing, but that is a potential. That would be a big, I think these shows already that they have announced for Disney Plus are big as far as the Hawkeye, WandaVision, and Falcon Winter Soldier, just because those are coming from movies. But I do think that would be the biggest one as of date. If they said, the only one that I thought could have been bigger if Blade was going to Disney Plus, but if they were, let's say in a year or two, they do a D23 or Comic-Con and they say, hey, the first time you see Fantastic Four is on Disney Plus, that I think would be very massive for mainstream and general audience and us comic book fans, because that would be, I guess, I'm very interested because I think Miss Marvel's going to be the test of that too. Miss Marvel's going to have her show and then she's going to go in Captain Marvel. I still, if I have my money, I still think there's some sort of setup for Fantastic, but maybe that's it. Maybe my thing is Fantastic Four gets set up in Captain Marvel too, but they are not the Fantastic Four, and then their series is Fantastic Four. I don't know. It would be good because you could have tons of time with that family. So it is an interesting tweet. Like Kay says, I agree that that person, I've seen him get good scoops as well. I always say they're kind of like the C plus sort of tier. So they have a good track record, but they've missed some stuff. But it was interesting. So I thought I wanted to shout that out. So we can get back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Joe says, I know you talked about it months ago, but he just likes hearing about it some more. And I comment back to him, you just like hearing us, their smooth voices whispering FF. Dude.
Well, and Clay says with the new focus on streaming, they need to make big leaps. Oh, I agree. We've been talking about that for a while. I think streaming, because now with video games and movies, they're going to want to do this. So in 10 years, hopefully not, but if something like this ever happens again, it's not this shutdown of everything stopped, everything halted. It would be the same thing with video games for a while. They had to delay certain games, like Last of Us got delayed because they didn't even want to put in stores just because of COVID. And then I think they want to set up in the future to be much more easy. So I couldn't agree more. And that would be big. That would be, I know they're always talking about like Brent and Ray have good conversation about this on fans about Disney Plus wanting to chase Netflix. I'm always with Brent where I'm like, they can be a solid number 2. I don't think they have to be number 1, but in their mind, if they're obsessed with becoming number 1, a big property like Fantastic Four being exclusive to Disney Plus would be a good kick in the pants to some people.
Yeah. So, all right, we got to go back to WandaVision real quick. Looks like we have a new actress that's I love these castings. Say joins the show. It's like, isn't it wrapped at that point? You gotta love those castings. After I think Mandalorian was infamous for that. Like the show's wrapped and everyone's joining.
They'll be in an episode and they'll be like, they joined the show. Well, yeah, we just saw them there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this was tucked away inside a report from Deadline about HBO's limited series, The White Lotus. It was revealed that actress Jolene Purdy recently wrapped filming and has a recurring role on WandaVision. It's not clear what her role is necessarily, but it does mean that, like they point out, it's a recurring role, hasn't necessarily gone into what it is at that point. But again, an actress, she could be playing a witch on the show, could be one of Agnes's people at that point, or she could be working with S.W.O.R.D. as an agent or a scientist. So we'll see.
Or could she just be a wacky neighbor? She could be nothing. I have no base of this actress. I haven't seen her anything that I know of. So I'm excited to get my first taste of seeing her talent. And I usually trust, we've talked about it before, most Marvel's casting are pretty spot on. The same thing of like times before I've complained about like, oh, I'm not the biggest fan of Mark Ruffalo's Hulk. It's never because, oh, Mark Ruffalo. It's kind of like, oh, there's some choices I haven't really enjoyed with it. But as far as casting and acting, they've never really steered me wrong. So I trust them. And obviously they have my big faith after 2 weeks ago when they nabbed Oscar Isaac. So you know what? They're good in my book. So if they think this woman is right for whatever role she has.
We got about 1 or 2 more weeks before he denies that rumor.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. He's like, no, I'm never doing Disney Plus.
I don't know what you're talking about. Those are just so fun. So we got another story. Natalie Portman's definitely making the rounds talking about her time getting ready to start shooting the new Thor movie and talking about how differing her powers are going to be from Thor at that point. So she was on the Kelly Clarkson show, and yet again, it got brought up the idea of what she's going to be with Mighty Thor. And she responds to the question saying, she does have powers. It's not exactly the same as Thor. It's her own version of it. And she's called the Mighty Thor. So, we've already kind of gone into Jane Foster's kind of origins of becoming the Mighty Thor, but now in comics, she is one of the new Valkyries, with War of the Realms has drastically shifted Jane's position in this at that point. So she is one of the new Valkyries at that point. It's a long story, and I'll show you in a second of how huge War of the Realms is at that point. But Valkyrie's kind of power set in this case, and it could be a mix of it. I would like to see her as the Mighty Thor, but definitely maybe by the end of the movie, she becomes one of the new Valkyries.
I like everything she's saying. My thing is that I wonder if she's gonna become our female Marvel version of Mark Ruffalo and Tom Holland, where I just feel like she's just starting to not she's not there yet, but I'm just waiting. I'm waiting because it just feels like she's the one that revealed the cancer thing. Seems like it's supposedly happening. She's talking about these new powers and whatnot. I'm just waiting for the see, like, yeah, I had a great time with Chris, and it was great to see Tom again. And people be like, Tom, like Tom, and they'll go, oh, it's Tom Hiddleston. Like, I'm that is my another prediction of mine. I think she is gonna slip in the because the thing is this movie might get delayed. Just she's so talkative about it, which is good. She seems excited, and that's the best thing because I think an engaged Natalie Portman being excited is something we should be excited about, as she left the franchise not being too happy with it. So the fact she's back, probably working with Taika, I guess working with Christian Bale somehow again. But like that's my prediction is I'm happy to hear all this, but I think she's going to say something, whether it's Christian Bale's character's name, whether it is Tom referring to Tom Hiddleston being in it. There's going to be another thing that it's going to come up and be even bigger than one of the things we've heard. It's just that's my that's my prediction, because she's also a woman who does a lot of movies, so she gets interviewed a lot. It's not like somebody that has like Robert Redford, who did Winter Soldier, is like, well, you're only getting hit him for like the press tour of Winter Soldier. Like he's not doing much these days, but she's doing a lot. So she's gonna, and especially there's like still 2 years before this thing comes out. So if you think I've complained about maybe hearing too much about Black Widow, I hope that doesn't get the case with Thor. And she, like I said, reveals something that we didn't want to know.
Yeah, we've already got a title, so she can't reveal that. We're still waiting from Tom Holland about that.
Yeah, exactly. We'll send her down there. So maybe she reveals she's a cameo in Doctor Strange. It's like, uh-oh.
Yep, there we go. So, but all right, our last story at that point, looking at Loki.
Speaking of Loki, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So we'll start off with one thing that Ghana got Daniel RPK put out there, saying that MCU will reportedly follow the comics and make Loki pansexual by giving him two love interests, one who is male and another who is female. It's likely to be displayed in the Disney Plus show and the Marvel Studios series at that point. So, again, I like the idea. Again, anything that has to give a wink and a nod to the comics character at that point, I say, hey, bring it on, Yeah,
for me, it's something that like my friends were kind of not put off because they have anything against people being like that. They were just, I remember when we had saw Avengers and we were talking about characters and whatnot. I think we were talking about Thor 2 and talking about like, oh, this and that and Loki. And I think I said, oh, I'm pretty sure he's playing him as a gay man. And obviously this is saying that he would be like bisexual.
I know, yeah. It was interesting when they said pansexual and they just started giving him a male and one that's a female. It's like, okay, that's again being someone that forgive me, I just said like, is that bisexual? But maybe
but maybe that means in the show he's gonna be hooking up with aliens and other creatures, right? And that because that's Deadpool did that a few years ago, right? Where he was like, oh, I'm not just into men and women, I'm into pretty much anything with a pulse. So that's the thing where, and maybe Loki is a man who, much like a Star-Lord or something, who's like going across many universes. I'm sure you bump into many different species of people. So this is, I guess it's just for me.
And the idea of, I just wanted to be sure, pansexual, what it's, not being tied to a sex, gender, or gender identity. So it definitely works. It was just interesting how it was phrased, like male and female. It's like, I think it's a little bit more than that.
Well, that's why maybe one of those male or females is not human species, though. That's what I'm wondering. Maybe that's why he said like that. And for us, we're like, this doesn't make much sense. Like that just does sound like bisexual. But for me, he to me has played that character very fluid. And I could be wrong, and I didn't look up, but I swear, I think he's spoken about this before. And I think it was around Thor Dark World time where he had gotten that question. And I think he pretty much said that he had played it in a way that he was just an open character. He never played in a way where it was this or that. Like he viewed him in a certain way. And I always got that from his perspective. And to me, what's very exciting is like sometimes superhero romances and love things can really bog down a movie or TV show. We've seen that, in my opinion, sometimes a lot with CW. We've seen that with movies. We've seen that with many movies that force, like, you got to have a love interest in the superhero movie. There's been few, I think it's better now, but before you could count a few in your hands from what? Andrew and Emma, Tony and Pepper, Christopher Reeve and Lois Lane, like the original. There's probably, you could only get to 5 of like relationships that felt essential to the story and actually worked and wasn't a bog down. In Deadpool, that relationship. So it's going to be interesting because Tom Hiddleston's Loki has not been romantically linked to anybody in these shows, man, like films, men or women. So it's going to be seeing a different side of him. And I think that's that's interesting. And Tom Hiddleston, he's, that's my nickname. He's a man crush man. I love Tom Hiddleston. That man can do no wrong. So I'm very excited for this news, and obviously you have it linked to the other stuff, which is I'm caught off guard by. I'm just gonna say it. This rumor going around of Loki season 2 production slate for 2022. I'm very surprised because I just don't know what to think about it. I'm happy because I think a multiverse Tom Hiddleston is great because I think everyone wanted to see him keep playing the role. He's just one of those actors that fits it so perfectly. He has a major fan base, especially on like Instagram and stuff. That like talk about thirst photos. People thirst and write so much fanfic about Tom Hiddleston's Loki. So like they have a big audience there, but obviously they like the show, and obviously Loki would survive, but I'm still very interested in. We've talked about this before. Where Loki, the two pieces in this Loki, WandaVision, Doctor Strange, where does it all fit to me is Loki and Evan Peters. That's where it's like, how do these two exactly fit? And obviously Loki might have to do with going into multiverses, but I feel like he's gonna have to have a good guy turn once again if we're getting a season 2.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like you said, Production Weekly kind of broke this. Charles Murphy actually started talking about this back at the beginning of the year in January. And the things he's heard, he said actors are being brought on board for lead and major supporting roles in Loki are having options for a possible second season written into their contracts.
Yeah.
So again, a lot of times if it's a character that's going to be a major part of the first season without necessarily a death at that point, yeah, this is kind of standard operating procedures for studios to kind of put that option into that at that point. So
it just makes sense just to do it, right? J.K. Simmons is contracted for, I think, 2 or 3 more DCU movies. I don't know if we'll ever see those, but look, if the Batflick ever happens now next few years ago, well, we already have him under contract for that. And you don't have to negotiate. It's the same way many people have multiple films on their contract and they never happen. It just goes away. So I think it makes sense for it to have it in there, but the fact that they're actually talking about it is very interesting. And that's a show I can't wait to hear more about, because we've heard, I think as far as the shows in production, that's the one we've heard the least about. We've heard a lot of casting, but we know there's variants, like the time variants. We know some things, but they haven't really talked about it. So I'm very interested to see where they go with that, and more Tom Hiddleston, the better.
Yeah. So a lighter news week outside of the the WandaVision kind of expose at that point. But yeah, we'll see what with hopefully maybe elections done in this country. Hopefully things start bubbling back up with some news, and we'll have some more to come at you next week.
Yeah, if not, we can recommend our best Marvel presidential runs. There's one where Norman runs for president, Loki runs for president. Marvel touched it before, so if you're feeling the election mood, there you go. Well, we're going to do an ad break because I hadn't seen this next topic with a bullet point, but Chris apparently has something after this ad break. So we're going to take an ad break right now and come back and see what Chris is cooking here. So Chris, what is this Chris mail haul? What do you, as he reaches back, this guy has an Xbox Series X. Mine
no, we already talked about that, but
no, I know, but I'm just saying, like, you're just like Barney with this bag of goodies. You just keep pulling stuff out. I'm just jealous over here.
So I got this in the mail. We've got the omnibus of the Infinity Gauntlet. This amazing George Perez cover at that point, a reissue of this, the thing that basically, just outstanding.
I own the tiny version of that.
I do too. This was my replacement for the tiny version at that point. But this is by far the largest omnibus I've ever owned or seen. This is War of the Realms.
Jeez.
This is the entire thing. This is the largest Marvel omnibus they have ever produced.
You don't need a baseball bat if someone breaks in your home. Just use War of the Realms.
I'm gonna War of the Realms you at that point. So, again, I'm very excited to, me. I'm a trade raider, and I collect the certain ones that I like. And the Marvel, I'm kind of big into the events, but yeah. So I just wanted to show that off, just because.
Very impressive.
They're just huge.
No, those are thick. No, like I said, you every week. I've already said, I've been on record that I'm getting back to Omnibus, and I'm waiting for all new Wolverine. That's gonna be my first time back into it. But I every week I see her shelf, I'm just like, oh, it's coming. But that's my new. I'm gonna start building my collection and whatnot.
See, I'm starting to wind down at that point now that I've started. Finally gotten lost of a lot of the older titles that I've been wanting to get. So, but anyways, random.
Those were some good
thing.
hauls. Go to the YouTube version just to see that. So
yeah,
but I will
get the Fact or Fictions.
Yeah, I'll pull those up. I apologize that they came in last minute last night, because honestly, it's been a hectic week. I was super tired, and literally last night at the crack of dawn, I was like, I got to get those out. So I promise next week it'll be, like I said, from Saturday to Sunday, I had about 2 hours of sleep. So it was a crazy week. But
you didn't do anything this weekend that benefited society. So
no, exactly.
Shame on you.
So yeah, I bad boy. But no, so first Fact or Fiction this week, Luke Cage will appear in the MCU before Jessica Jones and Iron Fist. 75% fact, 25% fiction. You and I were both fact on that, so it seems like most people agreed with us. This was interesting, and I would almost like to, and I honestly might run it again for next week because it was a shorter one to get some more votes, because I want to see it. But it was Marvel Studios will produce a theatrical animated film, and it was 50-50 as fact and fiction. So that's why I honestly might run it one more time, just because it was a short and pull, but it just interests me. And it's funny that I feel that people are,
you want to recount?
Well, kind of, yeah, because people like you said, like, oh, definitely for sure. But I could see tons of people making a case like, no, they don't really do that. That's up to other people. So it'd be good. And then the last one of the Phase 4 films will go to Disney Plus. 57% fact, 43% fiction. So again, another close one, leaning in the fact. So yeah, those were results last week, and yeah, kind of surprised me all around. Other than the Luke Cage one, I was even surprised. I was surprised that even if there was a close percentage in the Phase 4 going to Disney Plus, it would have been the fiction leading. So yeah, it's maybe that's just more people willing it. People just like, just give me Black Widow already, throw it on there and just be done with it. But
oh yeah. Well, we had a question in our group chat going on. It was first put out there by Travis Hines, posting a tweet from someone else, like which one of the Netflix characters had come into the MCU, and he wanted us to talk about it. And a few of us did. I think we just did that last episode in a roundabout way.
So two things about DC Alliance. My favorite thing is like you. I love when they bicker about random things, like the titles of the things. One time, and it was a very serious subject, but I'm not trying to make light of it, but they were talking about the Ray Fisher thing, and they were talking about how someone during an interview investigation of Ray Fisher was using a microwave. And they got into like a 5-minute debate about this microwave and if that is an offense. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Only these two could be. So the other thing is, though, Travis gives Greg so much crap about being forgetful. Travis is just as bad, because either he's a forgetful or he's admitting he doesn't listen to the show, which shame on you. We listen to your show. But I also love, there was this recurring thing like 3 weeks in a row. Greg was like, oh yeah, and Aldous Hodge has been cast as Hawkman. And Travis was like, we've talked about this already. And Greg's like, have we? It's just like every week I never get time, but I want to send a question like, can you talk about Aldous Hodge as Hawkman this week? But yeah, we kind of talked about that. Like,
Oh yeah, but I like Tony kind of reversed it in the chat at that point. He said maybe the other question is what Marvel Netflix villain will appear first in the MCU, and my choice is Kingpin. It may be the easiest one, but I think Kingpin and of course Vincent D'Onofrio should play him. I don't know if they're going to give him back the chance, but yeah. I think that, and people say, oh, is he reprising what the role is? No, he is the role.
Yeah, it's tough because I think the only two options that jump up to me right away is him or Bullseye. Those are the two where I go, I think it's one of these, and who do you get to first? Do you get to Kingpin as the crime boss, or do you lead up to him? Obviously, I'm with you. If we're bringing back Jamie Foxx, who to me delivered, along with the directors and writers, one of the worst performances ever as Electro, and we're giving him a second chance, please just give Vincent D'Onofrio another, and he doesn't need another chance. Just let him do what he does. Like, he'd be great. But I think I do lean to you because as far as Kingpin, because you look at someone like Diamondback, very connected to Luke Cage. You look at someone like Kilgrave. I don't think we're going to see him without Jessica Jones, and I honestly don't think we would see him in the MCU. And if we do, I think it'll be very lessened. I don't think they'll go that dark route that they did with him in that show. So I think I would agree with you. I think it's him or Bullseye, and I think Kingpin just makes more sense. And especially once we have Daredevil, even though Moon Knight will be dealing with his own people, you're going to be having a few more characters bouncing around in New York again. And you're going to need somebody to be, because I always thought, and I was wrong, and maybe this would have been a better route. I'm not trying to rewrite history. I always thought with Defenders, they were going to make Kingpin the overlining villain that would bring them all together. They didn't. They went to the Hand for the fifth time, and that did what it did. But I think I was always like, oh, he's the perfect villain to affect all their communities, all their lives somehow, and that's how they get together. I think you could see it somehow like that with the New York superheroes. In a way, the smaller time people, if we do ever get a Frank Castle, you get Daredevil, you get Moon Knight, you have Spidey around, all maybe affected by this one character, and then boom, Kingpin. And yeah, of course, Vincent D'Onofrio. So I agree with you, and I think we're both in agreement. Just to say, if anyone's new listening, that we think Daredevil would be the first one to come into the MCU.
But yeah, so we got that question, and so Brent sent us two-factor fictions he wants us to tackle.
Mm-hmm.
The first MCU X-Men movie will be called The Uncanny X-Men.
This was a tough one when he said that, because I see pros and cons for it, because I see it stands out on its own. It shows that it's something different, unique, and it shows that it's to the MCU. But at the same time, and this is going to sound completely weird, is uncanny the word that would fly in the mainstream? Not in a bad way. It's not, but just like, are people like uncanny? Like, if you don't have the comic book touchstone, is the audience going to look at that and go, hey, that makes sense? Because I think something like Amazing Spider-Man catches people's eyes a lot more than Uncanny X-Men. I feel that is a bit more comic book based, but I think I will say fiction, because I do think, I don't know what the name we could get, but at the end of the day, we honestly could just get Marvel's X-Men. The same way technically the Avengers movie is Marvel's The Avengers, like like the stupid game. They both have this stupid like Marvels or whatever, but I think they could do that to differentiate. But I don't know. There is still that worry me. I know people say no. There is still that worry for me that it is people talk. That's been a talking point the past few years about using X-Men as like, does that deter people? I've always took an X-Men meant to mean mankind. And I think many people do, but some people want to spin it as, does that just mean X-Men as a male? And there's a lot of things going on. And I do think there is still a percentage chance that they do just go with something like mutants. I don't want them to. I think there's other names even then they could change, but I'll say fiction on Uncanny X-Men. But I think I would personally like it. If you're asking me, I'd see that and I would get a nice smile on my face, like, oh, this is cool. But I don't think they will.
Yeah, I'm going to take the opposite view. I think you do bring up a point of titling it, Marvel's X-Men at that point, the branding at this point. But I think this is also a good idea to brand it, separating it from, as they have now titled it, the Legacy Marvel films at that point in Disney Plus. The Uncanny X-Men. Yes, it's one of those things. You got X-Men saying, "Oh, what is this?" It's something you recognize X-Men, but you do it like uncanny. It's like it is honoring the past. It is honoring the amazing run of the series at that point. And I think it would. I'm backed on it just because I think Marvel also does the MCU does a good idea of just tipping the hat to the past at that point. So.
Yeah, I always like the other one was Astonishing X-Men, but with the certain, I don't know, writer maybe not having the greatest reputation.
As you notice, I didn't say the director's name of Avengers when we talked about it.
So. Yeah, so that's the only thing that I hate that's been solid, because I always like just Astonishing. Like that is just like it's just like, oof, like it just has such a name to it, but hey, maybe it's Ultimate X-Men. You never know. Like I know they wouldn't probably tip their hat that much, but I do. That's the thing. Like you think, so here's a random, not even factor fiction, but a question for you. Do you think no matter what, it'll be something blank X-Men? It will not be just X-Men or Marvel's X-Men. You think whatever it is, they will go with a sort of like the Amazing Spider-Man. They'll have some sort of title in front of it.
Again, kind of like you, I'm 50-50 at that point. I could also see this being like the title of the sequel.
True.
Clay also says he thinks that they might save Uncanny X-Men for Disney Plus show as a spinoff show, like I'd been talking about, like a New Mutant show, Generation X show, something like that. So, it doesn't. Gary, it does not have to be an adjective in front of it at that point. It's just it's an interesting way to honor the past. So. But
It
again,
almost ties into our other fact of fiction.
if we're marketing it at that point, you want to market, you want to get the biggest attraction to. You don't want any issue like you had with Harley Quinn and the Fantabulous Birds of Prey, the Fantabulous Emancipation of one Harley Quinn. You don't want to have that problem. So that could also be steering them away from putting uncanny in there. Even though it's just one word, it's still, when you say that, why is it uncanny? Why can't they just call X-Men? They may be going that route. So, again, I'm 50-50 on it. I'm going to go with my heart on this one and say uncanny. But again, probably my head is agreeing with you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and then this other one he dropped, and he said, we will see different X-Men squads, blue and gold, like in the 90s, and they will eventually have movies titled X-Men Blue and X-Men Gold. So it's tough because I feel like you asked two different things here, Brent. I think we will see different X-Men squads, but do I believe they'll have movies titled X-Men Blue and X-Men Gold? No, for two reasons. One, this might be risky to say, but I think you'll maybe only have one X-Men team in the movies, and you'll have a bunch on Disney Plus, but their breadwinner X-Men will be the movie, that main lineup. And I don't think you'll see Blue and Gold because I think it could get in that territory of what I've talked about before of like Young Avengers, Dark Avengers, New Avengers. I think if it's, you don't want them to be too like cereal box. You don't want them to be too like, oh, look at the new Lawnmower 2000, like X-Men Gold, X-Men Blue. It's one of these things of, I think mainstream people just watching from the side, that could really confuse people of like, why are these people blue? Why are these people gold? Oh, they're different teams of like, okay, but why the cut? Like, I could see it being a step that might be too unnecessary. So I think I'll say fact to them having different teams. Even in theatrical, I could see that. But as far as them being titled in gold and blue, not in the title of the movie. Maybe in the show, maybe it's like this is the gold unit, this is the blue unit. They could play some tribute to it, the color scheme, but I don't think you'd see that title in it. So I'm fiction.
Yeah, I'm going to go fiction too. I'm with you that I think they could use these for Disney Plus shows, spin-off shows at that point. But I think you're just going to have a sit now. Could you have a movie where you have two teams going on? They make that little homage. Okay, you're the gold team, the blue team, and not make really a big deal out of it. I could definitely see them doing that. But I think if they're going to do spin-off movies, it's either going to be singular around a title, a solo character, or another team could be like X-Force or Excalibur, things like that.
I agree with you, but I will revisit this if once we get Young Avengers, if they don't call it Champions and call it Young Avengers, then I might change my tune. Because if they go with Young Avengers and it's completely fine and people don't think it's too gimmicky, then maybe Gold and Blue are on the table. So I can see it.
Cool. All right, so it's my turn. I've had an enjoyable break from coming up with some good factor fictions, but I think I got some good ones. So I got one that ties into our Loki discussion.
Ooh, okay.
All right, so Loki will not return in Thor and Love and Thunder. No cameo, no nothing, but we will see he will make an appearance in either Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, or Thor 5.
So when you say Loki, do you mean Tom Hiddleston's Loki or any Loki? Okay.
That's going to be what the audience is going to recognize at that point.
I'm going to say...
I'll just say I'll take Thor 5 off the table. We're going to say he will not show up in Love and Thunder, but we will see him make an appearance in Doctor Strange.
This is tough because I do think for sure he's in Doctor Strange. Is he for sure in Thor 4? I'm
taking that off the table.
No, but that's what I mean when you're saying in Thor 4, Thor Love and Thunder.
Love and Thunder, yeah.
I always go back to that Thor Ragnarok watch along with Taika when they asked him about Tom Hiddleston, and every other question, Taika's flying his gun, he's smart, he has a quippy remark, but he was just like, yeah, I don't have a comment on that. It was very un-Taika to say. So I think I'm going to say fiction, even though I still, part of my heart says fact, because I still, again, another Travis prediction, I still think there's a chance Thor Love and Thunder ends with a kid Loki on Thor's doorstep, and the next movie is him and Natalie Portman trying to raise his kid Loki. And I think just the hijinks that could ensue would be so much fun. So Tom Hiddleston's Loki.
And thus I can hear the major rolling of the eyes of Greg on that one.
Oh, get out of here, Greg. Have some fun. Go read Kid Loki and tell me you wouldn't have had a good time there. But I'll say fiction because I think that Taika still, I don't know if it's Tom Hiddleston, but I still think he tipped his hat that something Loki related is happening in Thor Love and Thunder. So I'll say fiction for now. Again, same thing as Young Avengers. Ask me a year from now, could be completely on the other side, but I'll say fiction, but it's not a strong fiction.
Okay. I'm a fact on this one. That's just I think they're gonna do a movie without Loki they've got a lot going on planned for this movie at that point, and I think a cameo just it seems throwaway for what Love and Thunder is trying to do. But again, I trust in Taika. If it's gonna fit in, it's gonna fit in. But I'm gonna say he's at least done for this Thor movie for a while.
Yeah.
Next one is we will see our new Wolverine in a solo movie first before he joins a proper X-Men in the MCU.
Oh, that's a tough one. Because if you go back to my X-Men predictions, that Travis would be saying fact because I said that I've been pitching Lore to be on the team and him to be like out in the like a legend almost just the legend of Wolverine or Logan, and she's maybe searching for him or he could be a mentor. But then do you say it do you do it that way and then do you have that finally they're together moment, or do you have the surprise in an X-Men movie with an end credit scene where he pops up this joint?
I put that out there as our end credits that we get that moment at the end of the first.
So that's what I mean. Like if it's his first appearance, that would be no end credit scene. That'd be
correct.
That's where it's tough.
Like I said, I'm choosing my words carefully, like Scott.
Oh yeah. I will say, because it's just I want to say fact, but just like because if I say fact, then yeah, that end credit scene tease is gone, and I just I'll say fiction just because I think at some point you're gonna have an end credit scene, and it's gonna be Alki Lake, or there's going to be a tank or something like those claws. I just feel like they don't want to miss out on that moment. But I don't know. It's tough because like even Spider-Man, like he didn't have an end credit scene. They announced he was coming in, but still he debuted in a film. He got a big hype moment, but it was still like in a film. It wasn't a solo film, but it was still like here it goes. Wasn't a big surprise. So they've done that before. So it's like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this?
I'm gonna be a little bit different on this one and say fact, just because I think, as we've kind of said in a lot of this episode, Marvel Studios is trying to do things a little different as they go and beyond the idea. So they want to give the X-Men, if they're bringing them in, we said that Wolverine will not be a part of the first team in the first movie. We could see him in subsequent films at that point, but the talk of the movie I would say the first film should focus on everything about the movie itself. You bring in even an end credit scene, the movie becomes, did you see that end credit scene versus
That's true.
versus that at that point, which again, a lot of movies do have that. That's why you have stingers. The stingers happen at the end of the movies these days to kind of get people hooked and get excited for the next one. But I think a cool direction would be to give whoever they cast, this is your film. This is how you're not going to have to be sharing the limelight with a team. That's going to come later. You already know you're going to be on the team. Let's do what we're going to see as our MCU Wolverine.
No, I think it's tough because I go back and forth, but no, I think that those are some great points about the talking of that Wolverine, the whole you could start him off that way. So I'm very 50-50 because I can make a case of fact or fiction. So I'll plead the fifth and say I'm being the straw man. If I had to go one way, I might now go fact just because you made some good cases. But that's a tough one. That's a good one because again, that's one of those that we just don't know till they start doing X-Men and we kind of get a vibe for what they're doing because it's I always agree with Brent where he talks about like Miss Marvel, Miles Morales being the most popular characters, and lots of people bring up Jessica Cruz. I agree with that she's starting to build up, but I also feel, and I think Spider-Gwen too is another character, but I feel that like Laura is starting. She's not them, but she's at those early stages where it's like more people are getting to know that character and more people are liking that character. And I think stuff like the Alm is being sold. That's where it's like I could easily see them coming out and saying that's our Wolverine. So it's like you could even get another. They better not call it Logan. They won't go that route.
I don't
but
think they're gonna do that.
No, I don't think they're gonna do that. But they could say, hey, he's gonna be off on his own. So I will say fact, but that was a very tough one. I'm saying fact to the Wolverine one.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So Clay also says fact on that one. So, all right. My last one, I'm going to put some years. We always like throwing years and random years. So I'm going to go with lucky number 7. In the next 7 years, a new animated series on Disney Plus will be titled Marvel Team Up. That will not be canon, but will introduce characters to a new generation with our established heroes and villains.
So you're kind of saying like we never got a proper Captain America Spider-Man kind of fun interaction. So this could be, hey, Tom Holland and Chris Evans are voicing those two, and they're going to go on an adventure.
I wouldn't even say it has to be them voicing. It's just the characters in the sense of, you got a fun way of introducing new characters that maybe they'll be in a film, maybe they'll be on a live action Disney Plus show, but it's focused on the kids, the fans at that point, kind of introducing some characters we may never see outside of this show. And it doesn't have to be canon.
Next 7 years. I'll say fact. I don't know if it would be exactly like that. Like I still think there's some newer characters that they would still maybe skirt and not have in there because they'd want to save for movies.
True,
but I could see, because I know you and I, isn't that Marvel's Rising? Yeah, I think kind of right, but that wasn't made specifically for Disney Plus. I like what Clay's referring to. I think this would be like a kind of what if, where a bit bigger of a budget, bigger of a highlight. And you and me have been saying this for a while. I think what if's going to be a big hit. I'm not saying it's going to be massive and it's going to break Disney Plus records. I just think that it's going to be an underdog, and when it comes out, people are going to be really talking about that. And I think they'll put a spotlight on Marvel Animation, and they'll go, you know what, let's do more of this. It's not easier, but it's just like it's a different route. We can get different people working on it, whether that is a film like we talked about last week, whether it's a show like this. So I'll say fact.
Yeah, I'm gonna say fact too. I would love them to do with this idea of Marvel team up in the sense of, and that's not just heroes, villain team ups too.
Mm-hmm. And then we can get some Star Wars characters just to really bug the hell out of Greg. What happens when Captain America teams with Luke Skywalker this week?
I want Luke Skywalker to team with MODOK.
Oh my goodness, there we go. We'll have to do that podcast. Maybe that's amalgam chat waiting to happen. Crossover for Marvel and Star Wars characters we want. That'd be tons of fun.
Yeah.
Let's get Kylo Ren and Loki in a room together, and then just talk about whose hair is better.
Who's got higher pants and rock hard abs?
Who has more daddy issues, Loki or Kylo Ren? That'd be a big conversation right there. So
yeah. All right, well, we'll put those out there along with Brent's and get your opinions on them. But let's head to our issue number 4 of Cosmic Ghost Rider.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to mention about Loki and Kylo is it's funny that the death of their mother both kind of flips them. If you think about it, right? They're both mad at their fathers in a sense. Their mother passes away. That kind of gets them on a better path. So just, maybe there's some more parallels there that I didn't even think about. So
however, they're not both named Martha.
Nope, not yet. That's what we're gonna change. But no, Ghost Rider number 4. This one's interesting. This is like a really, I feel, kind of introspective issue. I think this is the most, so it is a wild issue. It is crazy, but I think this is the most toned down in a good way, as far as this isn't about batshit crazy things happening. This isn't about Ghost Rider is going to kill the entire Marvel Legacy universe. This is about Frank Castle and what he believes in and how far he's being pushed. And it's just honestly kind of a depressing issue too. It's sad because one, you have Frank Castle again failing, and he sees that even trying to raise a baby Thanos creates a bigger monster, and he takes that personally, even though I think it's supposed to symbolize that it just kind of shows that whatever Thanos is given, his poor nature is going to adapt to it the wrong way. But Frank doesn't take that way, right? He takes it as, he failed again. It's another failure of his life. And he sees a lot of things in this issue. But yeah, it's a big, I think it's a massive change of pace, and it works very well, but I think it's a massive change of pace for the whole series. And I think they could have bungled it, but I think they do a good job of striking a balance in this issue. There's still some comedic beats, but they're a lot lessened actually.
Yeah, it's definitely a different change from what the wildness of the third issue with all Cable bringing in all the rando heroes and the changes of them. But it's the effects of, okay, everyone's been warning me that, saying he's a lot worse. He's a lot worse. You have no idea what you're about to unleash at that point, and you get that huge thing. Oh my gosh, we were successful. Look at this peaceful visage. This landscape, this farm, and
this
then
moment of serenity where it just is beautiful.
And don't forget, toddler Thanos is eating butterflies at the time, because why not? But then they stare at he looks ahead and sees exactly this huge cityscape of basically liberty and penance. Thor, not Thor, Thanos, statue of Thanos, and then Frank. At that point, it's ruled by fear. At that point, it's like, oh my gosh, what have you done?
It's such like a scratch record moment of when he's just seeing all those beautiful things, and then it's just like, and what is this? And it's and it just goes down there, not on a story perspective, but in just the characters going downhill with each other, because it's Thanos being disappointed with Frank that he's not happy with what he built, because he's literally like, I'm doing what you did, I'm punishing the people, and then Frank goes, well, that's not what I meant by punishing, and it's this gray area, right, of, I think, again, Frank Castle does a lot of terrible things to a lot of terrible people, but he doesn't view himself exactly like that. He knows he's a terrible person, but he always feels there is a code, there is a reason for it. But there's tons of people that do just write off Frank Castle, look at him like he's just a complete psychopath. And I think that's what you kind of saw here, that Baby Thanos eventually grew up to just see that really dark side of Frank and miss the underlining message, of, hey, I'm not going to kill people, we're going to run. Well, Baby Thanos takes that as, yeah, okay, I won't kill people, but I'm just going to torture them till they want to be dead. So it's like, yeah, that's not really exactly what he was going for, but and then Frank just gets his wits end and takes the gun and just decides he's going to assassinate poor little baby Thanos right there to stop it all, after he sees a past version of him and his wife like drinking coffee all happy, but Thanos presents that as like a gift to him, but he is severely offended because he's like, again, I have to serve under you or live under you, and that's kind of the ultimate breaking point. Anytime Frank doesn't have too many breaking points, but anytime you mess with his family, even if they're dead, that's a big no-go for Frank Castle.
Yeah, I like what he says to the adult Thanos at that point, looking at what he did. He said, they deserve a chance to be forgiven, Thanos. You can't just dole out death sentences because people don't fall in line. Thanos calls him out. And I say, you'll forgive me if that falls a touch hollow coming from your mouth, Father. And he's right. Yeah. Again, it's one of the things when I read that, it's like, well, that's not how you necessarily do things at that point. Again, he's not exacting punishments on vengeance on people that don't deserve it, but that's where Thanos misses the point, saying, yeah, I'm doing this for people that deserve it. Not everyone deserves this type of treatment. But you're right in that sense. When he sees, he basically said that this isn't real, that's not me, that's not my wife, none of this is real, and he's done with it at that point. But I love it when he's about to basically take out baby toddler Thanos. Thanos just laser beams his eyes, pulls the dark side on him, yeah. And he says, war beats him up a little bit, so there's still a place for you here as my herald. So we've basically come full circle back to, again, no matter what he does, he will continue to serve as Thanos' herald at that point. And so we end the issue with him Thanos holding his baby self over Frank at that point, with one more issue to go, and seeing we've got a climactic battle probably getting ready to happen.
Probably, yeah. So, yeah, I think it's a good ending to the issue. It sets you up, and it's just like kind of that nice cliffhanger before we're gonna get into the finale. And yeah, it was a good issue. It is a good issue in a very different sense. It's like I said, it really just lays off the gas for a little bit and goes into coasting, but then the next episode's going to ramp it right up. So yeah, I'm excited. Next week is the final issue, and then after that we get into Vision with Tom King, and it's going to be a good couple of weeks off. So we got that, and hopefully a WandaVision date soon. But I'm excited to close this out. It's been a fun one.
Yep, it's been good. So Marvel Alliance 24.
Yep. Another volume in the books. Yeah, no, as always, whether you watch live or whether you're listening to this, thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate it through these whole months since you've been with us. It's been great. Even in a weird time, we started this and hoping for all this big content. We've gotten some big news, and our big content is so close yet so far away. But one day, we'll be getting those movies and getting those shows. But I want to thank everyone for sticking with us through these times, and it's been a fun time. So you can follow me at Travis B. Snail. Usually doing something in here, whether it's on Marvel Alliance, maybe guessing on another show. You can check us out in Geek First, doing Mandalorian reviews over there, doing some Patreon content, stuff like that. Just having a good time. And again, anybody that tuned in the review or tuned into the stream, retweeted, shared it, just we're all really grateful over there. Like I said, there will be a video. Thank you, everyone. But yeah, and I was happy to do this again with you, Chris. As of right now, I should be here next week. I haven't got my schedule, but every other day, that day I'm working days. So it's looking very likely. So yeah, if not, we'll let y'all know. But I'm thinking it's likely, and I'll be excited for number 25.
Oh yeah, no, it's going to be exciting, and when this drops, tomorrow in the States is Veterans Day. So again, thank you for those of you who've served and
Absolutely
continue to serve, and those who gave their last full measure of devotion. We thank you and we honor you tomorrow at that point, or if you're listening to us today. So just wanted to put that out there. But yes, thank you again, listeners. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Marvel A Podcast, and me personally at Chris Balga. You can email the show at marvelalliancepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance on Twitter at GUA Pod Network. Continue to tweet, email, or provide feedback, ask us questions, fact or fictions. We love all that stuff to put it on the show and get your views out there. And continue to rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts or whichever your podcatcher choice may be. As always, thank you again. Thank you, everyone, for listening, tuning in. And as always, Stan the Man would say,